Hi, everyone. Today it's going to be a little different. Corey, is dealing with his life, and so he's not going to be really around to do videos with me. But I am lucky enough to have Dylan, a friend of mine from X that is a lot like me, and we're going to be probably doing a lot of videos together, and continuing, the series of mythology and also going into more scholarly and archaeological stuff that I also am very interested in. And, Dylan's also very skilled at. So go ahead and tell us real quick who you are and what's going on.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dylan Violette. I go by CopperViolette on social media because I spend a lot of my time researching the old copper complex of North America. For those who don't know, the old copper complex, it's one of the oldest metalworking traditions that we know about. It got started a little after the last ice age and continued until around 3,000 years ago. And my education history, it's a little different than most. I've juggled between public school and homeschooling. Uh, I went to university for 4 years and got a psychology minor. Was this close to getting a bachelor's in psychology like Damien has, but I didn't move downstate to take the research classes that I needed. But managed to get a minor in psychology, and I switched my major to history and political science, but I didn't uh, finish that up. But
Right on.
hopefully one day I'll go back and finish that to get a history and political science degree.
Cool. I actually started 4 classes into my master's, but then financial, my wife couldn't, work and stuff. And I had to, things happen. I had to go back to truck driving because that's where I was originally before trying to go to school. She was working and supporting me. So then financially, I couldn't finish school, but I also had, then I tried to go back again, and I was displeased. I became an atheist in college, but then I was kind of displeased also because I'm a real critical thinker. I was displeased how psychology like has people pick like one thing, and I'm like, that reminds me of like a mechanic saying, I only use this many tools. You're like, the fuck?
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
different cars. I mean, different cars need different tools. How about ones from other countries? If a car is from Japan or a car is from Germany or France or Italy, it's literally not the same. You need metric, and then you need. My point is, and I'm not super good into stuff like cars because I'm kind of genderqueer, so I really don't really like manly things, but I'm just making a comment that psychology saying like that you pick one sort of like way to view the world, say CBT or something, or someone else could pick, Rogerian and do, or psychotherapy or whatever. I just like, shouldn't it be about the person and not about the psychologist or, counselor?
Yeah, you should probably like assess the person first.
Right. And so
Or just
what do
apply a
they
framework.
need? And here's
Yeah.
what would work for them. I
Mhm.
mean, addiction therapy is different than someone who needs feminist therapy. Or my point is, so I was kind of displeased with psychology, and also the fact like that they preset like that a single person has to get married for well-being. And I'm like, why is that? Some people live their entire life and are happy single. I'm not saying everyone would be, but some people are happy being celibate, right? I'm not saying I would choose that. But my point is, I don't like how there's like this norm. Like, here's what everybody sort of has to
Yeah,
do to
like you
be
have to
well-being. And
you have to check your boxes, and you have to only use those boxes. You can't use anything else. You can't
so
use
yeah,
multiple frameworks.
right. So
Yeah.
I decided to try social work because I thought, that's
Mhm.
probably maybe more what I'm really feeling now,
Yeah.
It's more about helping the person than trying to fit like them into some box that I've already started before they showed up.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I noticed some of that too when I was in university, not just with my introductory psychology classes, but even later on into ethics. Like they would have us write essays like, you know, here are 4 different frameworks you could use to help somebody. Like, pick one of them.
Yeah,
Like, but there's value in each of these
of
frameworks.
course.
Why can't I just like combine some of them? Because this person, it seems like they would benefit from having a combined framework rather than just picking and trying to fit them into that.
I totally agree. So, in fact, I realized also that ethics wasn't the main focus. Like, there's no therapy where the first thing you think about is ethics. It's your theory first, and then you add ethics. I'm like, that's backwards. So I wanted to create a thing, my own counseling style called ETA, Ethical Therapeutic Alliance, because I felt like, it needs to be ethical first, and we need to focus on therapy, like they're actually, helping these people with what they need. Because sometimes I felt like another thing too is they have like solution focus, which is short-term therapy, and then they have long-term therapy. And I'm like, well, everyone that comes immediately does kind of want a solution, but most people also really kind of need long-term therapy. So I think that the whole concept is wrong. I mean, I think almost that you need one and the other, not or.
Yeah, you have to balance those out.
And then that's also
Because
the
you
thing.
can
People
cause a
need
lot of
way more
harm
of the
if
one
you,
and
yeah,
way less of the other, maybe, or whatever. But so I realized it needs to be about therapy too, not
yeah,
like some preconceived
yeah,
things. And it's alliance, because you're working with them. You're not over them. You're not better than them. You're working together.
yeah. It's like a
They're
partnership.
Yeah.
It goes back and forth. They learn from
Right.
you, and a
Well, that's
lot of the
why,
times
anyways,
you
so I
learn from
was I
them.
was going to do that, but because I became an atheist, I also was really having a hard time, because I really saw, if I really want to do the best help in the world, I have to attack religion, because even the counseling was like only pushing that religion is positive, and I'm like, man, in my life, there's no fucking way that's true. And so,
Yeah,
and I saw that it really holds people back, because like even like one of the things they said in one of our classes, things are real and not real, but that depends on the culture, because some
big
culture
time.
would say that supernatural is real, so you have to also accept that supernatural is real. And I'm like, well, okay. So I didn't like that. But for me, why I got so into the archaeology kind of stuff, even though that's not anything on my radar when I started, is because that's how I became an atheist. They showed me archaeological stuff in counseling, because they made us take a world religion class and a studying the Bible, and it was more like archaeology of the Bible. And I turned atheist halfway through the Bible class. I like, oh shit, this is all bullcrap. And one of the things that started me thinking, but it didn't turn me, it was really the devil that I really realized, oh shit, this is fake. But when they said that, that the Bible flood story was actually 2,000 years older in Samaria and stuff, I started going, uh-oh. But it's so to me, that's also why when I became an atheist, I didn't know, like, well, the other people that are atheists are just right. I mean, why would I believe that? I just was been lied to. I was 35. I've been lied to for 35 years. Yeah, I don't believe atheists either. So it wasn't like I just assumed, okay, the atheist must be true. I was like, actually, I don't know what the fuck is true. And I feel like gods are a lie, but I don't feel like I know what is true, though.
No, and I was in a pretty similar position when I was younger. I'm 25.
Yeah.
So you have some time on me, a lot more experience in a lot of areas. But when I was younger, I went to church, every Sunday almost. My brother and I, we went to this after school church program, and we had gone to a Bible camp once. We spent some time there, and I'll admit it was fun. There's a sense of community there. But as I got older, and started getting into astronomy and reading papers, watching videos about that stuff, that's when the questions really started coming up. Like,
Yeah,
I'll give a little example. It's more of a goofy one. When I
that's
was a
fine.
little kid, when I first watched Star Wars, I think it's Episode 4, A New Hope. There's this scene where it shows a Star Destroyer uh, getting attacked, and it just starts falling and sinking off screen. And I was asking myself, well, hey, is that thing just going to keep falling like forever, or is it going to hit a ground?
Right.
So it's little questions like that that had me looking through the school library and using the computer at the city library and just like doing research and asking questions and questions and questions. And
Well,
that's when the
that's a
split
good attitude.
and that's when the split between my belief in God at the time and this other way of thinking, a more rational, like logical, structured way of thinking, started to emerge.
That's good. Yeah, I'm 54, so I've been an atheist for a while now and done lots of research. I started doing this in 2006.
Yeah, so you've been
Researching.
doing this for a while, a lot longer than I have, especially with the history side of things.
Yeah, well, right. So but the thing is, though, I've been trying to study the entire world from at least 1 million years ago.
Mhm.
So, like, just pre-human to human was my main focus. I learned some stuff older, but my goal was to really figure out human, because then I could figure out when religion happened and, see what's true and not true and what's, just culture. I mean, my opinion now is it's all culture, all of
Well,
it.
yeah,
So I
that,
have
that's
nothing
what
to
it
people
is.
like, aren't you agnostic? That's like saying am I agnostic about, the Jolly Green Giant is in my freezer right now protecting vegetables. I'm just making it that's literally when someone says, is God real? That's what I hear. Oh, is the Jolly Green Giant really protecting your vegetables, Damien? I'm not even agnostic about that. Or is the tooth fairy real? No, and I'm also not a tooth fairyist, but if somebody, because someone asked me before, would you be, against the tooth fairy if people start promoting it? Absolutely. God, I would have to be. I
Well,
don't
yeah,
want.
well, yeah. If you set up like a secret camera and you caught the tooth fairy like sneaking some cash underneath a kid's pillow or something.
But you get like, to me, it's funny when they ask now because I know so much stuff. It's a ludicrous idea. It's that goofy to me to ask or to say, am I agnostic? I'm zero agnostic. It is culture, period. End of story. I don't get in. I don't, like some atheists that have like strong opinions, like abuse other people or put them down. I was 35. I have no right to abuse people for having the stupid belief for a long time. So I don't do that. And also, as just psychology in general, my goal is teaching. My goal is helping people to think better.
Mhm.
So attacking them has no value to me in a sense, like that kind of stuff. Because some people just like calling names and it makes good videos. That's not how I like to, even if I could. And I do know a lot. So I could probably make people feel bad, but that would be unethical to me in my way of how I should be, because it's really not about what they do. It's about what I do to me.
Mhm.
That's what ethics is my behavior. And so for me, and I'm not saying some people, they don't have the same ethics as me. They also don't have the same knowledge as me. So I don't require every other atheist that I think is okay as an atheist to have to do my style. But if you had all of my stuff and my understanding, yeah, I would hold you accountable to be different.
Well, yeah,
It's
and that's I suppose, one of the unfortunate things about being knowledgeable in a lot of subjects. Uh, like you said, there are some people out there who they're just rude from the get-go when you talk to them and their views are different.
right.
Like they'll call you stupid, ignorant, or even worse.
Oh yeah.
And like,
Well,
how are you gonna like? Why would you start a conversation like that?
and I've had people do that with psychology. I mean, not psychology. Well, that too. Psychology also, but usually philosophy. People that are really good at philosophy literally call other people like dumb fucks and all this. And I feel like that you're not a teacher then.
No.
See, I'm a teacher. And a teacher doesn't do that, even to the weakest of student. Because shouldn't you try to make that student less weak instead of shaming them for being weak? I mean, to me, it doesn't make any sense for what I want to do.
Yeah, because a teacher is really gonna inspire their students when they're insulting them left and right.
I'm just
With,
saying
like, every name in the book.
That's my style. So I mean, I don't.
I respect that.
Well, thank you.
That makes a good teacher.
That's what I try to, because I try to remember, and I have 3 videos about how to do atheism, activism, and the first thing I say is know you, but also what is your real goal? Is your goal to show off? Is your goal to look better than people, to feel better than people, or is your goal to actually help? Because my goal is to help. I don't care if I look better than anybody. That doesn't. I mean, plus it's fleeting. Better in what area? One area. It's like, say someone, I'm better in reason, but maybe they're better in science. Maybe they're better in doing music. Maybe they're better at climbing rocks. They can, do it freehand or whatever. So I have a high intelligence, but I also feel like even that doesn't matter. And also I don't feel it's fixed. I don't agree with like just because you have some born thing. It reminds me of, like I've said before, that like for intelligence, same as like there's people that are skilled at say sports, but don't they have to practice all the time? And if they don't practice, don't they kind of lose that sharp skill? Well, I don't feel that reason and logic are any different. So my thing is I want to make the world better. And one way that is to me, I feel teaching. And then the best teaching is that we treat others with dignity. Because
I agree.
I know that people will learn better from a friend. They'll even take criticism better from a friend than they would an enemy. Because enemy, they almost don't even want to learn even when they're shown as wrong.
Yeah, especially if it's coming from an enemy, it can be really challenging just to even listen to them.
Exactly. So it's because it matters for me to actually teach, then that style really just means meaningless to me. So I know people that do and feel that people, now once in a while when people are really high, like sometimes I say stuff about Graham Hancock, but I also don't go on and on and on about it. I just say the dude's a charlatan and he knows better. I think he's a dishonest thinker because he's shown himself.
He's been doing this for so long. He should know better by now.
But I don't go on and call him. I'll just endless. That's not like I show why he's wrong. I let it go. I just say who he is and then let it go. You know what I'm saying? So I don't even then and I also do it to people that are at the top, not because to get myself famous or something, or just but because I know their influence is large. And so people need to know this person's doesn't want the truth. Because there's people that have weird ideas, but they're open in a little tiny way to the truth. That dude is not open to the truth. He is open to making money.
No, and a lot of these guys are a lot of the lost ancient high technology people, especially the YouTubers. Like they'll say they're just asking questions, but hey, why is it if you try to answer those questions in a comment, you get blocked or the comment gets deleted?
Exactly. And I've been blocked before by Jimmy Corsetti, who
he blocked me.
People don't. I don't. Like I said, I don't go out of my way. Even Graham Hancock, I don't call him names to his face and stuff. I just said, hey, this is wrong. Yeah. I just try to talk plainly. This is wrong. Here's what's right. Mm-hmm. I don't.
No, and I do the same thing because if I made a career out of insulting these people, it's just a waste of time for me. Doesn't get me anywhere.
Yeah, and to me, like I said, ethically, I don't want to act that way. So it's just for me.
Neither do I.
So, anyways, on that note, though, so we're talking about the copper culture, but to me, I always like to know when stuff started and what's pre-it. That's why I went back a million years trying to find out 100,000-year-old religion, because I wanted to know, like, how did we end up there?
That's a very good question to ask. Yeah.
So the same thing with the copper stuff. when we did a blog together, which we're going to really talk about. This video is going to be called that in a sense.
Mhm.
The indigenous copper use in North America 10,000 years ago to 500 years ago. And the reason why I didn't add the copper culture name is because I really wanted to address like the whole corpus of stuff, because it's not like after the supposed copper culture ended that people stopped using copper almost from the exact region that the copper culture started in.
Oh yeah, they kept using metal for thousands of years after the old copper culture faded away. It's just that a lot of their tool styles changed or got smaller. But what we really see after 3,000 years ago is this really big shift to ornamental copper items.
Right.
And once you get into the Hopewell era, and for those who don't know, the Hopewell, they're a culture mainly centered on in and around Ohio, but their trade networks covered much of Eastern North America.
Yeah.
And they were around around 2,000 years ago, and their culture faded away about 1,500 years ago. It transitioned into the Mississippian period. But what the Hopewell are known for are these
Right.
really...
And I'm showing a picture right now. So
Okay. Yeah, I
on
see
the
that.
screen, do you see it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, the Hopewell, what's interesting about them is they made a lot of really delicate and intricate copper items based on balanced geometries, like spirals, circles, triangles, and other items like that.
Right, but also the Adena is before the Hopewell, and the
Yep.
Adena also used Great Lakes copper
Yeah, that's right.
and made not as ornate, but it started in a sense. I feel like that ornate stuff that was already probably pre-occurring in the end of the old copper culture, and also to me, the Adena already has chieftains. They're not they're not big men anymore. They've moved past that into either sort of proto, like the first, or very early chieftains, and that becomes even more in the Hopewell, and then it becomes, in a sense, by the time the Mississippian. So the thing is, it's like a king. It's because the chieftain, the head chieftain, has other chieftains who have little chiefdoms, and then have probably big men below them. So at the more family clan or little levels. But in a sense, people need to know the supreme chief and the chieftain later, like in Europe and stuff, that just becomes king. And then the people that were, in a sense, in the supreme chieftain, the hierarchy, the nobility, they just become the nobility under the chieftain. I mean, under the king. So in the clans stay sort of the same. There isn't this big, upheaval. It's just sort of almost like we're just calling it something different when it's not really that different, in a sense.
Yeah, it's like the big men, once they start hoarding more wealth and getting more social influence, through trade networks, charisma, other things like that. Maybe they're like one of the best warriors in their clan.
Right. Well, I think one of the things
after that.
Right, but I think one of the biggest things between the chieftain generally, I feel, in a big men thing, is there's no hereditary. Like a chieftain is always hereditary, or generally, in a sense. Where big men, like you said, is because of your ability. So it's not like your child is just automatically the next big man. It could be someone else that has nothing to do with you. The thing, though, is like also I feel is that a lot of times in archaeology, it feels to me like they want everything to have to be a complex chieftain or a paramount chieftain to be considered a chieftain, and forget there's simple chieftains, which are just one step above, and they're fragile. They're one step above a big man in a sense. And then also that big mans don't have to have this large thing. They could just be a respected member of a clan, but they do have in a sense, more status than other members of the clan. So,
yeah, and it could also be like a shaman or like a religious specialist who knows a lot more about the world and how to make
absolutely, or
tools
yeah, they believe
than
they know.
everyone else.
Yeah, I know. Or it could even be sometimes a metallurgy, or like say the copper culture, someone who actually knows how to make the tools, even though like sometimes you could have like the tools spread out between everybody, right? Like they sort of say, oh, well, everyone kind of gets a tool in the copper culture. Yeah, but everyone, childs and females, everybody's, and probably not every single male is making these.
No,
There's
not
like,
just
in a
that.
sense, right? So somebody, going back to I'm just making a comment that people feel it's like all or nothing. Like when they think about these concepts or what, because like another thing too, like they'll say, oh, well, everybody had stuff in the graves. And I go look at the graves and I'm like, okay, there's like 4 types of burials. So don't tell me everyone's the same. Some people like the old copper culture.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are buried in little bags. Some people are cremated. Some people have stretched out on their back. Some people are on their side in more of a fetal position. Some people have multiple people in the burial. Some people don't. And there's a few that were like one person or a few people are like almost outside of the grouping of the cemetery. Well, why is that? And don't tell me it's all equal when literally I'm looking at it and going, this is not all equal. What I wish they would do is figure out the genetic connections and then the familial connections.
Oh, that's one of the biggest issues with the copper culture. That stuff's basically non-existent.
Right.
There's so little
Maybe
DNA from them.
eventually they could do stuff like that, because then they can know. Like I added, the one about the pitware culture, of Scandinavia 5,500 years ago, where they have a cemetery where people are buried kind of like the old copper culture. And they find out, oh, a lot of these people have to be a clan because they're all familial in nature.
Mm.
And clans have hierarchy, even though it's not real obvious unless it becomes chieftain and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also like, who's marrying who's related to who's buried with who. This stuff makes a big difference also, because then you can tell, is it matriarchal or patriarchal type of clan? Rarely is a clan both. It's not impossible, but usually it's one side or the other. In other words, are the men being buried? Like say, well, oh, there's men and women all being buried. Yeah, but if everyone's being married all on the mother's side, that tells you who the clan is.
Yeah, and that's work that needs to be done with the old copper complex, but it's not getting done.
Right. So because they can't know that, I feel it's not a good explanation just to say, well, it must be equalitarian. What you should say is, we don't know, this is a thought. But to say that it can't be, some sort of a grouping that is, in a sense, status leveled. In other words, like, say there's 30 burials, but how many people were in that tribe? If you can say there's 3,000, but only 30 got buried, and it's all from one family.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you're missing that this is status related, because the clan family, like, so there's just to understand, because I don't know if you know, someone watching, I know a lot about like totemism and stuff, and totemism and clan. So totemism is almost always, when someone says clan, you almost always mean totemism elements, because totemism is about this world, where shamanism, that's why they don't really clash. Shamanism is talking about the other worlds and afterlives. And even if you do spirits of animals, it's really connected sometimes to ancestors of even the animals. Mm-hmm. It's, or not, beings that are not there. Where totemism is a lot more about the clan, the people now, not later, not even so much in the past, because sometimes they have pseudo clan ancestors. So it's not so important, but lineage, which is the past, sort of is, but not in a shaman kind of way where it's about spirits and whatever. You can have, in other words, totemism doesn't need to have any magical stuff, right? It doesn't have, I mean, sometimes it can, but its links are more like in the here and now, where shaman is more like in the other world or something. So totemism, when they do stuff, the clan, it's like a supernatural belief about us, like in the here and now. So a lot of times that's where they'll have stuff like, you don't have sex with this person, only with this other member of the clan, in a sense, or you don't eat this thing now, right? Which that's a now thing. That you don't eat this, and if you do, they'll kill you. And if you have sex with someone you're not supposed to, they may kill you. If you don't do these certain behaviors that we do as a clan, we'll kill you, in a sense, or ostracize you. Well, taboos are with totemism, where shamanism, they don't have those kind of taboos in the same way. It's just purely the shamanism side. Like if you remove all the totemism, just the shamanism, they have sex with, other genders. They are other genders. They're mixing, where a totemist is not about mixing. It's about very strict gender lines, very strict, that kind of thinking, because you have to do this with this, where shamanism's like, yeah, we can just do whatever, In fact, you go to the other world, you can switch genders in the other world.
Not just that. Some people believe that once you die, you become like an animal for a while.
Well, right,
animal
correct.
Like reincarnation.
But I'm saying is, so you can change where totemism sees the animal is part of us. Like I said, in like this world, sort of like, and it's, or they'll say we come from them, but they mean in a way that's not sort of supernatural as much as shamanism would be completely supernatural. Anyways, my point is, I'm trying to say is, so then that reinforces why the clan does or does not do things, like you said, taboo. So you can have a difference in that they don't have one big man. It could be all the family heads, like a council of big men, sort of, instead of, which is a lot harder to see in the environment, because you're looking for one tent when really it's 10 of them. And they all come together and form the council, and they make the rules. See what I'm saying? Like all the clan heads, or it could be 50 of them, and all the clan heads. But if you can't check the genetics and who's related and how they're being buried, it's kind of hard to see that. So I'm just saying, I feel like they're like, oh, there's nothing. I'm like, nah. He feels that way from what we know, maybe. But I feel like even when I look at this stuff, I'm like, everyone's not buried the same. Now, when I looked at the old copper culture stuff, the burials, because that's how, to me, it's super obvious that something can be different. I expected the way everyone talked, oh, they're all, egalitarian or whatever. Everyone's buried the same. That's how I keep hearing. And then I look at the stuff and I'm like, there's 4 different types of burials. Literally, everyone is not buried the same.
Yeah, and even if you look at like all the different cemeteries, like even Prehistory, it's just like a bunch of stacked bundle burials. But even some of those are different, because there's ones with red ochre sprinkled on them. Then there's others that don't have that.
See, so you're getting what I'm saying is of being more careful and understanding how specialness could be expressed, and it doesn't have to be extravagant. It's like saying, well, is every gay person a drag? No. Some people look like you can't tell they're not just regular, what you would think of the heterosexual would look like. They would talk, act, think, and do everything just they're gay. And some people, it's the exact opposite. They're super, flamboyant or whatever.
Yeah,
but that's not
stereotypical.
Correct. So I feel like people assume it has to be stereotypical, obvious, to then say that it is. I feel like the confidence I hear everyone saying, well, the old copper culture was definitely, nobody was any different. And I'm like, You don't know that, right?
No.
You just literally don't know that. And then when I looked, like I said, okay, so I could have been convinced if I looked and everyone's a bag barrel, everyone's buried exactly the same tools. Here's another thing too: were women and men getting different stone tools or different, adding different copper tools? Did some people get only copper and no stone tools? Did children, depending on age, did they get different? Did different genders of children get different? I mean,
yeah, we see all that throughout the archaic, not just with the old copper complex.
You get what I'm saying? All that makes a difference. And to act like you just blanketly look at it all and go, well, it looks like everyone got something, so that's all the same. What the hell? That's not even critical thinking to me.
Yeah, and that's what I brought up in David Pompiani's podcast. Like,
right,
you have all these archaeologists and academics saying they're egalitarian, but if you actually look through the literature and the burial diagrams, they're not. There's not evidence to like fully support that. It's an idea, but to go ahead and
it's
say
an idea, but
this,
I felt less that, like I told you before, I feel like there was something. I feel like there was either big men, big women, because I also don't just assume it has to be male, or it could be third gender. You know, I don't know, because it's not like, you know, two-spirited wasn't a thing. Maybe they were the ones ruling stuff. But my point is, but we have to check all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is also, like I said, that when you have totemism, you can also have clans where groups of people are leading. So it still wouldn't show up. It looks like, wow, you know, there's 50 burials. Well, yeah, but if there's 3,000 people, only 50 got buried. And it's only one family.
Yeah.
You know, then all of a sudden it looks hierarchical as fuck.
Yeah, that's very different than hey, everybody's equal, like hunky-dory, they all get copper,
right.
They all get the same copper, when that burial evidence doesn't show that at all.
Right. So that's why I'm saying what I told you before. I do think there might have been, like I said, when it first started, which I know you had mentioned. Mm-hmm. When I'm not saying that it came and that it immediately was already hierarchical as fuck. I'm just saying I don't buy that it stayed that way. And it certainly doesn't. I don't feel like the confidence they have for saying that is shown in the burials and the way it's buried and stuff. And especially if you don't have the DNA. If you could show me that every single one was no part of any, you know, family, you know, grouping. Okay. If you can show me that there's only 80 people and 50 got buried. Oh, okay. But if you can show me that there was 3,000 people and only 50 got buried, and it's only one family or two families, then so it's two clans, and yet more people were being not buried or being put in some other way. I mean, you start to realize, okay, something else is probably going on. And I feel in general, the fact that even when the thinking, so like, say if I don't remember where, but there's this place where they bury people with spoons, but the spoon is a sacred item. But when they first thought about it, they thought it was just utilitarian. They're burying them with a spoon. Yeah, but or like burying with a beaker, right? The beaker people. You know, you'd think, oh, well, everyone's getting a beaker. Yeah, but not everyone gets a beaker. And some people got 4 beakers and not just one. So you realize, right? You get my point.
Beakers.
Yeah, so I'm just making a comment that all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute. But actually, to me, that stuff comes from China, because there's like 9,000-year-old things in China where they're buried with status items, single burial status items. And that idea, not the Chinese people themselves, but the idea goes to Siberia, and Siberia takes it all the way to Europe. And so those are actually just European ideas. But also some stuff and DNA from China and DNA does go over and become the Sami and all that. But 9,000 years ago, which, like I was saying, 9,000 years ago, people from northern China do go into this and take over Lake Baikal and become the mass amount of DNA in that area. And that's also, I think, when the Yinsen speakers either had already left and went to the Yinsen River, or were more motivated to do that when more people showed up that were not them, because they're very, in a sense, totemistic. So it's also, to me, since they're capital group Q, and they're totemistic. And here's the thing too, they stayed relatively pure the entire time. They don't have a lot of, it's like 95% Q, even later. So that is achieved super easy if you're a clan and you're super hierarchical to your clan, patriarchal or whatever. So, and we do know Q goes into the Americas.
Mm-hmm.
So to think that the Q shows up in the Americas and that we're not supposed to assume a pre-existing sort of a clan structure, I think is just not fitting the evidence.
Well, it seems to me that if you have an existing clan structure in Eurasia and you cross like Beringia and head over to Alaska, that clan structure isn't going to evaporate just like that.
It could to some amount, but to the majority, it's not.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's going to change over time and especially with different geographies because they have to adapt.
Right.
But it's not going to fizzle away 100%.
Right. And to me, it actually kept getting stronger in Eurasia. So every new structure that came was an even stronger version.
Mm-hmm.
So the ones that came at 24 were probably almost nothing. Then the ones that came at 16 to 14, they were a little bit more. The ones that came at 12 were a lot more. The ones that came at 9 or 10, a lot more. The ones that, and they have ideas now from paganism, I think, especially after 9, is coming from the Middle East. They're having ideas from the Middle East, which we know have clan structures and hierarchy going back 12,000 years, but not all. It's not that everyone in the whole Middle East. It starts in Turkey in one spot, and this slowly radiates out. So anyways, my point is, so then you have people coming in at 8,000 to about 6,000 or 7,000. Those people are a little more hierarchical, and they're more now also from Asia with the cDNA. But then more people come in again, with Q also at 5,000, 6,000, and then 4,000, and then 3,000, and then 1,000. Every single time, it's just honing up these structures in a sense. Although some of them are adapting and changing, like we already talked about. It's not like it just was fixed and never changed. It had a lot of influence and input. But like I said, we do know the Yinzens stayed that patriarchal as hell the entire time for 30,000 years. The fact that they didn't change for almost 30,000 years starts to tell you there's probably a hierarchical structure going on, a clan structure, whether you like to admit it or not. Because like I said, the evidence would more support that. If it wasn't, they should be a lot more blended. There's areas where it's real blended, but the fact that it's almost purely Q at such a high percentage is showing that culture rejected, no matter how much interaction with other cultures, did not accept their males.
And that's pretty telling about what social structure there is.
That's what I'm trying to say is DNA helps, because I know someone said before, well, DNA is not people and not ideas, Damien. I'm like, yeah, DNA is people that have ideas. Now, those ideas can adapt to change and did all the time. But when you look at how they interact, that's why I feel like it's important to talk to someone like you, and all about all this, because you can't just look at the DNA. You also have to look at their behaviors. But then you have to be careful when you're looking at the behaviors, not to just lump everything up into one thing and realize that no, like I was saying about the burials. Oh, they have red ochre. Does everybody? Well, not everyone. Okay, then not everyone. That is literally, if it's a shining example of that culture, but not everyone gets it, that is telling.
That's very telling.
You know what I'm saying? So you start to be more sensitive.
With the copper too. And even a lot of red ochre burials, they have shells from either the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean. And there's even red ochre burials that don't have shells or copper. So what's going on with that?
I would say less status. Obviously, that's what I'm trying to say. Right. So what if they have the stone tools and they have the copper, but they don't have shells? Only a few have shells, and only the shells are in, say, male, or only a female, or only a certain family. Like I said, of going back to clan. So that's why, to me, I feel like we need to be careful when we're doing all that. And I feel like all these, of course they're, totally equalitarian. And I'm like, that fucking no way.
No.
That's why I told you. I know that I say something that other people don't, but I don't say it flippantly or without reason. When people tell me stuff, especially academics, I generally tend to just sort of, I don't have skepticism. I'm a rationalist, so I rationally know they might have more knowledge than me. So I almost assume that they're tentatively correct. I don't say they're correct, but a lot of things they say, I just tentatively, they're probably correct. And even if I don't understand it, there probably might be still correct. And I go look, like I did it's why I told you a long time ago, when I went, because I never heard of the copper culture, then I was doing other religious stuff, and the red ochre, like you said, and I found, oh, wow, there's interesting stuff with copper. And I'm, oh, okay. Copper usually means hierarchy and stuff. So I went and looked at it, and they're like, oh, no. Oh, definitely never, and, you know. And then I go and look at their burials, and I'm like, I can't agree. I can't.
No. And I was
in fact, I wouldn't even feel confident to say. I would feel almost more confident saying there has to be some sort of, maybe we don't understand it, but there has to be some sort of stratification.
And that's what I was trying to drill into David and his audience. Like, you know, the egalitarianism thing. There are some cultures, especially earlier on in the Paleo era and the early Archaic, that show that. But it's been a framework for the old copper culture for so long that it's almost stereotypical. That if you're studying it, you're going to end up saying, oh, they're completely egalitarian. Even after reading the literature and looking at the burials that don't show that.
Yes, exactly.
And what I pose to David is, if there's hierarchy in this culture, which I think there is, I think they're more alike to maybe the Pacific Northwest than like a purely egalitarian culture.
The Pacific Northwest is clans. Like clans will own, like a family, that's how helps understand the genetics. A family will own part of the river. No other part of that culture is allowed. Only that family can fish in that area. And if it happens to be the best fishing area, fuck you.
Yeah, and you can see that even in the archaeology, because like a lot of the diagnostic artifacts will cluster in those areas.
Right.
Like you'll have little pockets around the landscape. And if you look at the old copper complex, that's what it shows. It shows these pockets, these little hot spots, like at the mouths of rivers, at certain parts of a lake, or around certain large wetlands. It shows much the same thing. And so what I posed to David was, you have like this complex hunter-gatherer fisher society.
Yes.
That's also mining copper, that's showing similar pollution spikes, like not the same amount, not the same scale, but just that pattern of like peak, rise, and then dip. It's showing us the other thing is like in China or like the Roman era.
Right. Which, like I said, has to be something. And the other thing is, if you're not hunting, you can go mining. How are you doing both hunting and mining? So this goes back to what I was trying to say about a special person or something. So someone's getting them food? I'm not talking about trade. I'm just saying in their group, if you believe this egalitarianism, then you already have distribution of labor, meaning some people are mining and not hunting, and some people are hunting for the miners, right? I mean,
and that's what I was speculating.
You get what I'm trying to say?
When I first started looking at the data, I'm like, there has to be some kind of division of labor here.
Like, exactly. And even to say that there's not some, either a group, whether it's, I don't agree it has to be a person. It can be a group of people, like a clan. Yeah. It can be all the elders, right? All the elders tell everybody what to do, and then they distribution of labor. Another thing, too, is I wanted to find out, which I know with DNA would help this, who was in these mines. Like in some places, people assume that it's men doing this, right? Well, in some places I don't remember off the top of my head right now, but some places in Europe, it's actually women and children doing the mining.
Yeah.
Not
and
the
like
men.
And in some places too, like even the Pacific Northwest, there's some amount of slavery.
There's absolutely a slavery in the Pacific Northwest, and then there's a ends up, I think, in some of these other places. I don't know if for sure the old copper culture had that, but it's not impossible.
No,
but I know that I think the Hopewell and the Mississippian definitely get into slavery. So and I think the problem is that, like that when some of this stuff was studied, it was like back in the 1800s or the early 1900s, or even like the 1950s, where people had, besides being racist and bigoted and sexist and all kind of homophobic and all kinds of other bullshit, which affects your ability to see the truth of an environment outside of your own self. They also had back then, especially, sometimes even now, they have a romantic view of the noble savage.
Oh yeah, like perfectly in tune with the environment.
Right, and so
like, no permanent architecture. They just wander around, living in loincloths, then they're happy.
So but when they do that, they can't think, well, they might have been doing war, or they might have been doing slavery, or they might have had hierarchy, or they might have had, chieftains. It's a harder thing, or kings. It's a harder thing to grasp, especially back when it was bigoted as fuck, which, like I said, I'm not saying it's not also now, but it certainly was even worse before.
Well, it was way worse back then. Are you familiar with Jason Colavito's work?
That name.
No, he's a skeptic. He specializes in logic, and he's written.
He does. Oh, wait a minute. I think
he debunks ancient aliens.
Yeah, he debunks ancient aliens. So yes, I did.
Devoted just to that.
Yes, I did.
He gets into some pretty interesting details about the mound building era during the 1800s, when the Smithsonian started surveying the Hopewell earthworks and all the ideas that were going around back then.
I've read half of his book on the myth of the mound builders, or whatever, or mound builders myth or something.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about, that book?
Yeah, it's a book talking about how people thought there was a lost white race, not just in North America, but in South America too.
Yes. So yes, I've read about half of it. I don't really like reading. I know that sounds weird to people, since I've read shit tons. I read as little as possible because I really don't like reading. I was raised in Southern California around gangs and not school. Like going to college or being, any kind of scholarly stuff is generally not something that immediately is something that I, with a passion, desire. Like, I don't consider myself a nerd or a geek, although some people probably feel I am because of how much I studied. But it was more just because I wanted to know the truth, and not because I have some passion to know this stuff. It's more like, and also because of being an atheist, I didn't want to be wrong. And I really did want to try to help others understand how religion evolved. So I had to learn more, like out of necessity almost, or than a real desire to be this educated as I am now. It's like more like an accident. You never would have thought that my personality that I have would ever become this educated. It's pretty wild. But my point is, though, I have to go against my own like bias and stuff to become educated. And I see a lot of people that are educated and haven't really done that to their own biases, haven't checked themselves. In other words, their egos are like in the way, or they're like, it reminds me, I recently changed my view on gods a little tiny bit. I still feel it's Turkey, still feel it's about 12 to 13,000 years ago, but I used to think it was because of agriculture, because everyone says the agriculture revolution. Well, now I realize it was the herding and pastoralist revolution is really what happened. Later, it's agricultural revolution.
Because you have to think, if you're herding all those animals, how are you going to feed them all?
So
but you need a reliable like grain resource.
But that's a different type of religion and ideas.
Yeah.
So I had to change my thinking when I realized, oh, they're wrong. It never should have been called that, the agricultural revolution. It should have been called the pastoralist revolution or the herding cult. And then that later becomes the agricultural cult around at least by 8,000, but possibly as early as 9,000 to me. So that's after 12 and 13,000, which I realize that's closer because for sure 11,000, all kinds of animals, the goat, the sheep, then by 10,500 or something, then it's cows. So all of it is, and there's still no agriculture, domestication. So I had to like rethink, oh shit, all this I've been thinking this whole time, agricultural revolution, everyone's told me they're wrong. So, I mean, that changed my thinking because I thought alcohol, because of agriculture, spawned the paganism. Then I had to learn, no, it didn't. It was animals. So, I mean, I had to like, oh, whoa, okay. Then I realized, oh, well, then it must have come from the hunting. The hunting cult turning into the herding cult is what we call paganism, the earliest. And then that evolved into, and then there was a war between that and agriculture, which people have said before, like the Cain and Abel story. Cain and Abel story is either a hunter or a herder or a pastoralist and an agriculturist interacting. So it can be either. That it's the war, and then who wins is the agriculturist, which is the weaker, the whatever compared to the stronger, tougher, whatever, type of a person. And so they're telling you like a moral story, not so much like a real people, but like the concept of these two things.
And yeah, like even a story like that, like looking at how long that, like a lot of those artwork motifs and beliefs have been around the Middle East, even with the Cain and Abel story, maybe like that was inspired by a real event, but it's been passed down for so long that it's basically just become a moral lesson. That's like
right, but I'm saying it's also how they explain them.
Yeah,
they explain,
that too.
which also in like the Proto-Indo-European, they have two brothers, right? So two brothers, and one of them is priestly and like more feminine, and the other one is more manly and warlike.
Yep.
And so you can see it's this similar to Cain and Abel. One's manly and one's more feminine, the agriculturalist. But the agriculturalist, the weak one, wins, not the manly one. Anyways, but my point is, I'm just trying to say is I had to start thinking differently. And that also helped me understand even that story. So the agriculturalist wasn't the first one loved by God. They tell you that, not the most favored. And I'm like, oh shit, that's what I'm seeing is it wasn't the first. Here I thought it was the first, and now I know it wasn't the first.
Yeah.
Anyways, this also to me is why like a lot of times they talk about the firstborn child or the first generation of deities, because a lot of people too think that Zeus is the first god. No, it's like the third generation of God.
Yeah.
And then it actually kills other gods to become the king or chief god. So you start to realize when you understand this, they're saying there's more generations of gods. That helped me go, oh shit. So it didn't start where everyone thinks it started. The time I had right, the place I had right, but I didn't have the order correctly. It was more deities that were simpler or more pastoralist first, then later, just like I realized later, a lot of atheists say this and they're totally wrong. They'll go, well, religion was created to control. Wrong. It was not about power at first. It eventually became about power after 7,000, but before that, no.
Yeah, especially when the first states start appearing and it becomes
right. Or actually, it's before that, but yes, it's when that, because from 7 to 5,000 is the development that ends up in states by 5,000. So it's that clan wars that end up in states. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but my point is, so before that, it's not the case. And religion is absolutely before that. So when they say that, it's just wrong. So I used to not know if it was wrong, like I said, but now I know no atheists, when they say that, they're fucking wrong. That's not at all why religion was created.
Mm-hmm.
Or they'll say God was created for that reason. Wrong. That also is incorrect. So I now know that because I understand the structure of how things happened. And it took me a long time to figure that out, and also to remove biases that seems reasonable, but it's wrong. So I had to, like I said, it's why I feel like a lot of people don't look at it and are not as willing to remove their own bias. Okay, forget what you learned and just what does the data show? So that same thing with the copper culture. You got to remove all these biases. And what does the data show? Does the data, if you looked at the data without knowing anything, without being told anything, would you really end up with that conclusion? The answer I would have to say is no, I would not.
And that was my experience when I first started researching them, because I didn't have all these preconceived notions about who people were supposed to be during the Archaic. I just wanted to look at the data and see what type of social structure I can predict from that, like a best fit based on the available data.
Right.
And that's why I liked your response when we first started chatting about the copper people. Like they were maybe like a matrilineal or patrilineal clan structure, maybe some big men, some proto chiefs or something like that.
Or yes, and like I said, when I said that, I also mean could be group of chiefs, not have to be just one superior chieftain or one superior big man. It can be the leaders, the clan leaders, big men, or as a unit. So I'm just making a comment. And then one thing though, you did say in that video with that I can't remember that guy's name, but
David Pompiani.
One thing you said, if I said it before, I was wrong. I now know that's wrong. Where you said the Algonquin came earlier. I don't remember saying that to you because I see Algonquin is 7,000 years ago in the Pacific Northwest and only moving after 100% sure. Mm-hmm. And probably only 3,000 to 3,500 ending up in the Great Lakes. So if I ever said that before, that they came in earlier.
You didn't say Algonquin. You had mentioned just the DNA groups.
The DNA comes in, yes.
And the DNA
culture change.
Like the current debate on the origin of Algonquins, they're relying on those DNA groups.
Right. So I'm just making a comment. And here's the other thing too, correct. So DNA can move alternatively to language. Mm-hmm. So when I talk about Algonquin, I mean Algonquin language, not that it has to be Algonquin DNA, just so you understand too.
Okay.
That's the same thing like I was saying about my opinion about the Sami. The Sami, if you ask Damien, are at least 10,300 years old to me. If you mean people that are the shamanistic reindeer, hunters or herders or whatever, reindeer people, then that's what it means. If you mean that it has to be the Sami language, okay, it's only 3,000 or less, maybe 2,000. But I don't consider the adoption of, it's like, so if people are from South America and come here and they adopt the English language, does that mean they're now from now on English? So they're only 10 days old? Or is you get what I'm trying to say? Or you get what I'm trying to say?
No, yeah, but I get what you're trying to say. Yeah,
right. So
they're adopting the language, but they're still like South American.
Right.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. Did South America, who now speaks Spanish, so did they turn Spanish at 1500 or whatever, or 1400, or are they still South Americans? You see what I'm saying?
They're still South Americans. They're just
speaking a bit of English. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
That I feel like sometimes how people think and talk, because this reason I bring this up is this. There was a debate I had with this person, not a debate, but an argument or discussion or whatever, and not on video, but on internet or whatever, say X or what, I don't know. I don't remember where it was because it could have been Facebook or something else. But me and him had an argument because he said that I was wrong, that Sami are no more indigenous than the Swedes. And I said, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. And he goes, their DNA came within. You even showed that. And I go, you mean the Uralic languages showed up within? Are they 100% in DNA only? Well, no. Okay, then, so some people were already there, right? Well, yeah. Okay, so then some of them for sure have always been there indigenously, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're on the same page. And I said, we do know the people with Sweden, because he goes, well, R1B showed up there earlier. I said, yeah, but that wasn't the culture of what you are calling Sweden. Sami reindeer hunters have been reindeer hunters for over 10,000. So that culture-wise, see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, they are known for that. You get my point?
Yeah.
Whereas the boat building, people of the Nordic,
mm-hmm.
which is what people consider Sweden, right?
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to Germans, right? Because he's not a German, because otherwise he's just a German. But he could, right? So he considers himself. So I told him, I don't have a problem with you calling yourself Swedish. I have a problem with thinking that you've been there past the Nordic or pre-Nordic. No, because then you could say you're a different kind of culture. Say the pitted ware culture or whatever.
Yeah, like even if you're in Norway, like what type of Nordic are you? Are you like?
But you get what I'm trying to say is that
yeah.
So his culture of the boats and all this certain kind of behavior, battle axe culture, or whatever you call it, there's a certain culture that he is associated with, in the Nordic culture, and then an idea of what it is to be Swedish. And I also told him, okay, even if we granted you that, you only were in southern area where you are now, Sweden. You weren't in Sami lands. You didn't own a whole peninsula. Well, no. So then why do you think it's okay for you then to own the whole peninsula and not say those are the indigenous people of that part of the peninsula? But anyways, I don't want to go into all that, but I'm just making a comment. It depends on how you're looking at it, because there are genetic isolates in Sami, not Sweden, in the Sami that are 10,000 years old on the female side. And there's also on the male side, especially R1A, that's been there for 10,000 years. So, wrong. Anyways, so that doesn't mean, of course, the whole culture and everybody that says, that has a Sami language means they're all 10,000. And I'll grant you that. I wasn't saying that. And if I did, then you misunderstood me or I was in error. But for sure, that's not what I mean. But to say that there isn't reindeer hunting for 10,000 years and they are related to that culture, you're wrong. So I was saying that's what I mean too about the copper culture. I do think the copper culture had several influxes of stuff. It was qDNA that relates to the Paleo-Indians. But it didn't stay isolated. Then it gets qDNA to me that probably relates to Kennewick man, which means after 9,000 it comes in. Yep. It has xDNA from the Middle East and earliest paganism and turtle beliefs of Turtle Island and all that. It has that because turtles do not come from Siberia. They have earth diver with like a bird or like chipmunk or whatever.
Yep.
Not a turtle. The turtle comes from the Middle East. So turtle ideas come from the Middle East. That's also why the turtle is down in India, because they have LDNA with the Dravidian speakers of southern India, which actually LDNA was in Iran, in southern, maybe southern Turkey and the southeast, and northern Iraq, and maybe even northern Syria. That's where LDNA was, and LDNA, so it was part of the Middle East, and it goes down there. So and the LDNA, xDNA shoots straight through the middle of LDNA on its way to the Americas. So and then we know this, or I know this, because Neville Corey has the oldest dancing turtle which is 10,000-year-old dancing turtle with two women, which sounds a lot like, when you think about it, like the I think it's Algonquin Ochobi story on how the in a sense turtle mythology, or the Earth Mother and the dawn goddess, and it gives birth to the twins. So if you look at the turtle and it's one woman or a human form that looks pregnant on one side or something, and then the other one's pregnant on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that here's the Earth, or the Sky Mother,
mm-hmm.
gives pregnant to the dawn goddess, who then gives pregnant, has two things, gives pregnant to the in a sense to the twins, because there's two. It looks both sides of the stomach have things. And then there's a turtle in between them. Yeah, because it's. I think that's a rough. I don't think that's. In other words, I'm not saying that the exact one they have is the exact one that Neville Corey had, but we do know that eDNA from Israel 10,000 years ago shoots into Neville Corey, and so. It is a fact to show that there absolutely could be a connection between the ideas that were already in Israel about turtles, shoots into there, and then XDNA is there, and then goes all the way.
And I can add a little layer to that with the red ochre, because at Tas Templar, that whole region with the T-pillars and early agricultural sites, a lot of those structures were actually painted. Like, they've been finding pigments there. And when you head over further in time, over to Catalhoyot, like, the house floors were painted with like red ochre.
Right.
Interestingly enough, you find that same theme over in Alaska at Kodiak Island with the Ocean Bay tradition. They're using red ochre, and they're like intentionally choosing to paint their house floors with red ochre, like out of everything they could have covered the house floors with. Oh
yeah. So like I said, I'm not done with explaining who all went to the old copper culture. So the first one's Paleo-Indus, which is a certain branch of Q, which probably related to the Aztec one in Montana burial that also had red ochre. It's 12,200, 400. I can't remember now. That's the first one that came related to that. Not it's themselves, but. Then the next one is Kennewick splits off. So it's not the Kennewick itself, but whatever was in Alaska that before he went down and became Kennewick Man. Split off and becomes, now that they get the X for the first time. And then that shoots all the way out to Nova Scotia. And there's the first dolmen and shell mounds, because I think that the mound idea and the shells, because shells are a mound, turtles are a mound. You know, and dolmens, they build this dirt mound over them. And then in Kurgans too, they built a dirt mound over them, similar. And I see that, to me. So it starts in Earth Diver myth, which is about building the first land and create the creation story. So that idea went down 22,000 years ago down to the Middle East. Well, the Middle East doesn't have mountains and stuff, so they don't relate as much to that. But they have been doing these turtles with these mounds, and I think, okay. So it's turtles, but Siberia is still just kicking butt, whatever, doing just Earth Diver. No, they're not building really any mounds. Then the stuff goes up, boom. And also the first shell mounds are over near the Middle East. They're out in North Africa and the Middle East are the oldest shell mounds. And then they progressively, and everything too, is Iran, and in areas where the X, because the X was also in Iran. It moved from Israel into Iran, and then out to, Siberia and then whatever. So when it goes to Iran about 10,000 or so years ago, same time the eDNA shows up in Neville Corey, and they get this, thing of a turtle for the first time. Mm-hmm. You also have Iran building shell mounds of snail shells out near their lakes.
Oh, and the snail shell is interesting because that's what we see over here in like Kentucky and Tennessee. Shell mounds made of snails. Snail shells.
Exactly. So because once again, it's a mound. It itself is a mound. And
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. The snail shell.
right. My point is, I'm trying to say is that that's why I told you. I realized actually everyone talks about ancient aliens or bull crap. No. This is a cultural thing. It starts about the first land being a mound, and then or a mountain is the same thing, and then it becomes a turtle because of the Middle East, who then also relates it before it leaves into shell mounds of either regular little mollusk shells or snail shells. So then it goes to Siberia again, right? But it keeps going. Well, it goes down from there into northern China, and they have 8,800-year-old shell rattles of turtle shells that have the earliest writing on them inside the like magical shells. And then later, even there's still writing on shells, the earliest writing for China, all relates to this. And then Siberia, 8,000 to whatever, maybe almost 9,000 years ago, starts making these platform mounds, like other places in the world, because all of this is related to like the first land. But they didn't do that until, in a sense, right, 10,000, you have to 9,000, you have X DNA showing up from the Middle East with this different mound idea, not just mythical mounds. Now we build real mounds. Well, that's about what happens in Siberia. They start building these real mounds, and then they make the first kurgan by 7,000. Kurgans then, with pottery and ideas and QDNA, show up in Ukraine, and then they have the first kurgan at 7,000 with a horse burial. Of course, kurgans out in Siberia weren't having horse burials, but they mixed ideas. Horses were coming from the Pontic steppe, but here's this new, we build mounds as our mound of creation and as our, in a sense, way of putting our dead, right? That then, because it's a reincarnation thinking, they're going to be reincarnated in the afterlife or whatever. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a reincarnation machine in a sense. So then those ideas go down, and also I think proto chieftain, but closer to like a king, like a idea happens in the first Kurgan people 7,000 years ago, and then by 6,000 for sure. But right before that,
7,000 and 6,000, that's when
that is definitely when the party really had hit.
Yeah, like the first complex chiefdoms transitioning.
Yes, correct. So that happens, but those ideas also go back to Siberia, right? By about 5,500, they're already going back to Siberia and back into the Americas by the same time. They just almost like straight by 5,000. But anyway, but what happens is, so they also go to they interact with the Cossack Mountains. It's about 6,000 years ago. They start building dolmens and kurgans and having elite stuff. They go down to the Balkans, 6,700, 6,500, and start doing that. First, prince or chieftain stuff. Then the idea goes down into Mesopotamia, 6,000. They're doing the White Temple, and stuff. And their emergence, in a sense, becomes the ziggurats. That idea also interacts 6,000 to 5,000, whatever, 5,500 interacts, or 300 interacts with Egypt. So then Egypt starts doing, their mastabas, which then later become the first step pyramid. And then I think that idea of the first step pyramid, we know eDNA shoots 5,000 years ago out to the what's it called? The Balkans, right? But it goes through Israel and all that. So that affects the beliefs and ideas, because then the people that become the Babylonians and stuff take over, right? The Sumerians, and they make the first dynasty, because Egypt had already turned small city states into more of an empire idea. So and genetic dynasty. So that idea goes into, and also the Babylonians go from before, where it's this sort of a loose idea of mountains, which in the Sumerians, which relates to, I think, the Cossack Mountains and of course Siberia. That earth diver in the Mount of Creation is more of a mountain, but Egypt had turned it into like almost the concept of a step pyramid. So when it goes to Babylonians, then they do step pyramid as the center of the world, or the mountain is ringed like a step mountain as the center of the world, which is the axis mundi, right? Mm-hmm. And then that idea goes to Ukraine, and we know from about that time, 4,500 or whatever, all of a sudden all the Kurgans they think are to the sky god as, but just think, if they just left Egypt and it's about Ra, the sky god, it makes sense that they would start saying that the day sun god is what they're, because also Mesopotamia and Egypt, when the Mount of Creation comes, on top of it is the sun god, or out of it is the sun god. So the thought of building your kurgan and it relates to the sun god, I think might have been influenced from Egypt going up there with the eDNA. And then that idea, they really quick send out Afursanova or whatever it is, I can't remember now, but goes out to Siberia by 5,000 to 5,500, or kept going, more than one, migration, not just one time. Those ideas then goes to the Tlingit. So that the interesting to me is people think that, which I don't think is totally wrong, but people think that the Tlingit is because of cDNA, but Tlingit are almost exclusively qDNA. And so I think that maybe there was a, which I've seen a person show a thing before that does linguistics and shows like a map, and it says the first thing that went over, the earliest, like 7,000 to 8,000 to 6,000 or so, that was Dane Jensen. Neither Jensen, which is the Ket people, which are 95 or maybe even 98% Q, and wasn't the Nadane yet. It was a pre both of those. Then it's not until 6,000 that Nadane, and this person has a map that shows in time, emerges in Siberia, northern Siberia, and they split into Jensen is there, and Nadane, not in the Americas yet, is in eastern Siberia. And then Nadane goes over about 5,500 to 5,000, and then you get to Tlingit. Then Nadane is actually on both sides. Then eventually Nadane gets taken over by other languages in Siberia. And then it's only trapped in a sense in the Americas to flourish. But so I think that the first one that goes, oldest one to go over might have gone with C, but the one that's connected to more the Tlingit and a lot of the different languages are actually connected to Q, which would make sense to me too, because Q then goes down into California, and 5,000 years ago is like eruption of Central California violence, to the point where I think it's like 1 in every 14 people had signs of violence.
And interestingly, that's around the time when the red ochre burials start increasing.
Right. So they also went out to the Midwest, which I think they brought some of their, but they don't go straight out there. To me, what they did is they go coastal, and then coastal people then go out to the Midwest, which I think is Algonquin. So when Algonquin leaves, though, it has all these new ideas that are only 5,000 years old, even though the language they start with in the Pacific Northwest is 7,000 years old. But the concepts are a lot more closer line to the, but I don't think all, because I think when they go out there, about blending, I think they have the turtle idea, which you notice everybody else doesn't have, because by 5,000, there's no more turtles, because now it's a mound and the sky god or the Great Spirit. So, but which is interesting is they also have the Great Spirit out there in a place where it shouldn't be, because they took it out there. So it's a blended. They have some stuff which has to be older. It has to be closer to X, which came in, about not after 9, and between 9 maybe and 8. So sometime around there is the time that the turtle was a big deal, for sure.
Yeah, and you see that in a lot of little archaic burials, like turtle rattles and just turtle shells.
Right. So it should be more that time. And I'm just saying, so I feel like before I didn't realize there was so many migrations to the Midwest that would affect and keep bringing different ideas. So but also, like I'm saying, is there's a thought that people have, like when new people show up, that like somehow, even if they're more powerful, that they just wipe out every old idea. That is never, ever been the case.
If you know anything
about, even like with the Romans, right? The Romans went to all kinds of places and kept adapting their gods. Same with the Greeks. The Greek is, a lot of people think, which is not incorrect, but the Greek are Proto-Indo-European related somewhat, but they're also Middle East related, like Samaria, and they're also Egyptian related, and they're also Minoan related, which is a blend of sort of all three of those and something else, maybe early farmers. So which would have been more like the probably Mount of Creation people, you know what I'm saying? So it's a whole bunch of stuff. And my point is, we already talked about this, that so everything is more blended than people think. And just because new people come in doesn't mean like it always is super obvious. Although I do think when the new status people came, who did come from the Pacific Northwest 3,000 years ago, it does change. The old copper culture changes to these new status items. Yeah, these people are high into status.
Yeah, and between like around 7,000, 6,000 years ago, that's when we see the copper mining startup on Isle Royale. This huge peak that doesn't decrease; it just keeps building and building.
Right.
So yes, that could be tied to that.
Which that's haplogroup C, the haplogroup C people, which had more Asian ideas and less Siberian ideas. So that, once again, they also, because see, here's the other thing too. People from Siberia, like I already told you, bring from because it goes from the Middle East and it hits like Kazakhstan. One of them goes Siberian all the way to the Americas. The other one goes down into China, the ideas at least, for sure. And then northern China gets these rattles, turtle rattles, 8,800. That's the same one that has the early writing. That's the same one that has status burials that are way too early. They have the silk, they have alcohol, they have all this stuff they should not have. Like all this really like advanced stuff, because the ideas just came from the Middle East. So they get all these advanced ideas. But it's just so that those ideas then go down and move, because to me, the Trans-Eurasian, which is Turkic, Mongolic, Korean, I can't remember, Samoic or something, and Japanese, all those are Trans-Eurasian related. But to me, Trans-Eurasian didn't come out of nowhere. What happened is the ideas come from Siberia, which is interesting too, because like the Yensin language is only that they know about it is young, which also could relate to the Dane too. But the Yensin languages are somehow a relation to the earliest Chinese languages. So the earliest Chinese languages are millet culture. Millet culture goes over to Trans-Eurasian area, and then all of a sudden there's Trans-Eurasian languages. I really think they had an influence in that. The Siberians, I think, had an influence on the China. And also China gets dogs about 10,000 years ago directly know from Siberia, who had them the ones that came down were 16,000, but they actually had them 33,000 years ago. But my point is, and that's also interesting because it's about 11 and 12, that they start having more shamanism stuff. But the oldest bird figurine in China is like, I think it's 13,000 or 12,000. But it relates to like almost the time of the dog, almost the time of this new shaman stuff coming down from the north.
Yeah. It's like there's this different package of ideas that they're starting to experiment with and integrate into their lifestyle.
Like I know there's a, I don't agree because there's mythology. Now I'm talking about something else. So there's a mythologist, which I do respect a lot of their stuff and everything, but they say that some of it also is because they don't understand migrations the way I do. But they say that the idea of coming from the underworld is how you ended up with Earth Diver.
Somebody coming like out of the underworld?
out of the ground. I have to explain.
Okay.
We're going to do videos on mythology, and I'll explain more, and you read and everything.
Yeah, that'll help me out too, because some of the stuff I'm unfamiliar with.
Like I told you, the best is to, if you can, at least watch the videos that I have. I know there's 15, but if you'll understand religion in a way you've never understood, and also then when I talk, it'll be a lot easier. Because
I've already seen several of them, but that gives me a chance to binge something again.
Yeah, because if you don't, I'm going to be bringing up a lot of stuff that is not commonly known, and so it'll be very hard to grasp because at least when I was doing with Corey, by the time of 15 videos, it was starting to make sense because it's a recurring thing. But anyways, so emerging from the underworld is something like, say, in the Southwest. It's something also in like New Zealand. It's something also that you see in India, and you also see in Africa. I don't think it's as old as that. That guy thinks it's like 40,000 years old. I don't agree. This is just to give you just to explain. So it's Craig and Ford, which I do. His stuff is great. My problem is not with his mythology. It's his linking with stuff, especially when he starts talking about what migrations did what. I'm like, that's literally not what happened. So, although he does agree with me, so some stuff I do, he thinks that Earth Diver is about 30,000 years old or so. I think it's about 24 or so, maybe it's 30, in Siberia near Lake Baikal. And I have a bunch of reasons why. There's literally an island that I think is the mound of creation. It is one huge island, like a mound, and then on the back of it is like a dragon.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So my point is, but he agrees it's probably up there, but he thinks it came from people evolving from the underworld. But my problem is, so that's not a creation. I know he could probably say other things, but to me, that's a creation of humans, not a creation of the whole universe. Anyways, and the other problem is to me that people back migrated to Africa. And then with the cultures you show, he's like, well, the Zulu. I'm like, the Zulu are like 700 years old. Relate to the Bantu expansion that's only 5,000 years old, which relates to the 7,000-year-old R1B that came from the Middle East. So I'm just making a comment, or he says, oh, well, the New Zealanders are a perfect example. I'm like, then I almost know you're wrong.
Yeah, a perfect
New Zealanders are only 1,500 to 1,200 years old, and they're
a perfect example if you arbitrarily cut off and you just like analyze them like they've always been isolated. But
see
you
what I'm saying? If you
follow
don't
their migrations,
I know when things happen.
Conclusion.
Yes, I that's why I say his mythology is great. Some of his conclusions. Because he'll say, well, I conclude this because these were always isolated. He says all the time, so irritating.
Well, yeah.
He'll say, Australia has been isolated for 40,000 years. I'm like, no, the fuck.
No.
How did they get the dingo 4,500 years ago?
Exactly.
How did they get, I can't remember, there's several things I can't remember now, but they get the dog, they get the dingo. because that's two different
Their
things.
toolkit in Northern Australia, their toolkits change, and there's some growing evidence that the Wandjina style rock art is
yes.
isn't
Anyway,
from there.
I'm
It's
not,
from
but I don't remember
elsewhere.
I have a blog that shows exactly Australia. There's several things that come in. Plus, they were not
for a different video.
They weren't even cut off from New Guinea until I think it's 8,000 years ago. So, and New Guinea was getting stuff. So stuff could have gone in New Guinea and then bled through to,
Exactly.
And we do know that shamanism shows up there. Well, shamanism is from Siberia. So how the fuck did it show up there?
Yeah.
Well, interesting enough, it shows up with the dogs. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Imagine that.
Anyways, my point is, thinking that, so it would have had Earth Diver, right? Yeah, of course, because it showed up with the dogs. Anyways, my point is that, like I said, so going back to the New Zealand. So New Zealand is like 1,500 to 1,200 years old. It's not that old. And before that, it's part of the Austronesian expansion. And that's only like 3,500 years old. And that goes back to Taiwan. And the Taiwan people are about at the most 5,000 years old. They come directly from central China.
Yep.
And central China had already had ideas, as we already talked about, by 9,000 from Siberia. And got the dog 10,000 something, So to think that these ideas couldn't have been later evolved ideas, I feel wrong. And anyways, because he thinks it went straight across the bottom, like the south, which would be the earliest to him out of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's going to seem that way if you only look at one line of evidence.
It's right,
you can conclude that, but his premise is flawed because he's not looking at all these other areas.
That's what I'm trying to say. So he mentions everyone he mentions are young. He mentions New Zealand. Oh, that's wrong, and they're not isolated. He mentions Zulu. Oh, that's wrong. Zulu's absolutely not isolated and totally connects to Siberia.
Yeah.
So does New Zealand, and so does he goes the Zuni or something. Okay, Zuni. They may have been there 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, but they also are not related. We know that their language goes to eastern Siberia, the eastern coast of Siberia somewhere. We don't know exactly, but I mean, and we know that eastern Siberia has, as he even would admit, 30,000 years ago had the Earth Diver. So how could the out of the ground come before the ground? It just,
good point.
I'm like, okay. And then because he made a comment too, which I also think is just a logical fallacy. He goes, well, things don't evolve. I'm like, literally, he says that myths can't devolve, but then I've never heard, he always says Earth Diver, and he always mentions the bird. Okay. You do know there's like 3 versions of the Earth Diver, right? And they devolve. Oh, for sure, it starts simple, becomes more complex, and then devolves. You do know that, right? So that would throw your whole mythology doesn't evolve, but also even worse than that, you yourself say that the Earth Diver devolves into what he calls the Bird Scout, which is like in the Noah's Ark when they send a bird out, and it comes back. The Bird Scout is like 6,000 and the Earth Diver's 30. So it devolved, right? We lost land and all of a sudden we just have the bird. We're in water again, but now it's just a bird. But my point is, so then with your own explanation, the Earth Diver myth devolved. So it's a complete logical fallacy to say myths don't devolve when you yourself agree that myth devolved. So, anyways,
the logic isn't sound.
To me, like I said, when I hear that, it's just like when people say, "Oh, well, the old copper culture is totally egalitarian." I look at the bears, I'm like, how did you reach that conclusion? So, I mean, and I've told you before, I really respect him in mythology. When he talks about mythology, he's on the money. When he starts mentioning like how old things are, I think sometimes it's like. Just like even like you hear him talk sometimes, he goes, well, out of Africa was like 70,000 years old. And I'm like, yeah. And an interesting fact, no one alive today out of Africa is older than 50, including all people in Australia who wouldn't have had that pre-existing thing. Now, if you want to try to say that that somehow lingered when the new people showed up, well, there's no evidence of that either, because there's no interbreeding. It seems like those people died off and then new people show up all brand new. But I devolve. So I'm just saying, but my point is, is not like, it's like, as much as I also don't want to attack, in a harsh way, always the pseudo people, I certainly don't want to attack academics, but I do want to address when either of them is, to me, being an error in how they're thinking. So I think that also, though, like I told you before, and I think you said about, you don't like ego. I have a huge ego, but I also know that's a huge stumbling block to reason. And so I try as much as I can to devolve my ego. What I actually call it is I die to my ego. I just take it and I throw it in the garbage, and I try to not have ego.
Yeah, when I say I'm not a fan of ego, like it's like specifically like dominator style egos, like this person's so much better than everyone else. Like you literally can't interact with the world if you don't have some type of ego. It helps you interface with others and understand the world around you.
But I'm just saying I'm
like yours is fine. It's balanced.
Well, not in reality, but by choice. I'm not born that way.
That helps too.
Yeah. I was extremely abused as a child, and I became a sociopath. I am still a sociopath. And I had mass conduct disorder and violence, like I already said, in my life. Being kind is not first nature. It's a rational choice. So that's why I'm saying I have to me, I call it dying to my ego, because that's the only way I can explain how I am able to do it, to manage and seem normal, is I just remove it. It reminds me of like when I was talking about being therapeutic alliance with people, like how to help them. I just remove me, and I'm not there. I'm not part of the equation. I'm just trying to assess and help.
Yeah. You focus on what's going on around you.
Yeah. So that's what I try to do.
Yeah.
I try to remove the burden and mountain of me.
Yeah. Because if you focus on yourself when you're talking with somebody, you're just going to get in your own way.
Right. And so I try to do that. I call it dying to my ego. I just let it disappear. And I just try to be present.
Yeah.
Kind of like with Rogerian theory, when he says, you just be present. Like, and I read a book that's called Becoming Naturally Therapeutic. And I feel like that's what I try to do, is just be really active and in the moment, or, really with the person, where I don't push a lot of myself in there.
No, that's one of the best things you can do.
Yeah. Well, I have high emotional intelligence, not just high intelligence. I took a test for it. I'm near genius when it comes to emotional intelligence.
Oh, huh.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. But like I said, but one of the things that is my ability to control my own ego. That's actually what helps me to help other people. Is I'm also not. I can de-evolve my ego when I feel like it's trying to take the fuck over, and go, oh shit.
Yeah, like a thermostat, you just got to turn it down sometimes, and other times you turn it down.
That thing's going out of control.
Yeah.
But like I said, one of the ways is epistemic humility, and is a good thing. Like, in other words, instead of always saying I know, it's also really super great to say I don't know, or to say I think but I'm not sure. This also, and I think that they may think it's egalitarian, but I'm really not sure.
And yeah, I was just thinking of that and how we could relate that to the old copper complex. It's like, do we know for certain that there was like maybe proto chiefs or big men in this society, or like you've mentioned, something that I've been thinking about recently, multiple chiefs probably. or maybe like scattered
Right.
across
They
the
may
Great
not
Lakes.
call themselves chiefs. They may call themselves elders or whatever, but they're doing
Yeah,
that
that too.
similar
They'd
role.
use their own language to describe that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we don't. I mean, we can hypothesize what type of language they might have spoken, or what symbols they would have used to communicate that. But
Yeah. So
it's
let's go to
speculation.
the blog.
It's humble speculation.
Yeah. Well, but all speculation is not equal. That's what I was trying to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
he says, oh, well, this came from this. And he thinks because he feels he knows a migration that then he can put it in a computer and map it Bayesian or whatever in probability. And then now he's more confident. Yeah, but that's assuming that you're correct on your migration things.
Yeah. That's assuming the premises are even correct.
And I'm telling
Yeah.
you, I especially that you're pointing to this, and I'm like, hey, all those don't match up to what you just said.
Yeah.
All those are super young cultures. Anyways, so going to the blog, right? So because I want to look at some of the stuff on that. So the first picture I did was to show like where the copper is and why that you could end up with a copper culture.
Yeah.
The fact it's pure and where it's at and how it's mainly up there. So there's other places in the northwest. Or not northwest. There's some in the northwest too, but the dark is the sources are pure.
Yeah, the high grade copper.
But the problem is, right, high grade copper. But the problem is, except in almost the Lake Superior, almost all those other sources are deep underground.
Yeah, that's what makes the Great Lakes copper unique. The glaciers removed a lot of the above soil and rock, and so like even today, you can still walk up there and find exposed veins.
Right.
Not just that, the glaciers also ripped up a lot of that copper, and so you can literally find it as nuggets or sometimes multi-ton boulders just scattered around the forests.
Right, but you also see there's also low-grade copper all along the Pacific coast.
Yeah, that too. There's a lot of that.
But and then going down, to the next like picture thing, is the periods. Because a lot of people they think like it's all like one thing or whatever, and there's different, which I tried to break them down into things. The pre-Paleo-Indian, the pre-Clovis, before 13,000, BCE, and then early Paleo-Indian, Clovis era, and then late Paleo-Indian, post-Clovis era. And then someone says, oh, well, you have the lithic stage happening in the Paleo-Indian. I'm like, yeah, there's kind of an overlap.
Yeah. It's not a clean break. When this this timeline was first developed back in the 50s and 60s, it was structured like that, like clean breaks. But nowadays, it's like gradual transitions.
Right, and there's also going to be sometimes transitional things that go into both.
Yeah, so like you're saying with your lithic stage, that it's the transition between like the post-Clovis and the Archaic.
Right, and anyways, I was my goal of doing it like this was just to make it more understandable for people that are not familiar with this stuff. And so I didn't change their stages. Like I kind of put together this. But not exactly, but kind of put together the pre-Paleo-Indian, early Paleo, and late Paleo to try to help, because they generally just say lithic stage, which they say is anything before 8,500 BCE, which I didn't like that. That's a lot of time and stuff going on. What the hell?
Yeah.
So what, back to 50,000 years ago? I mean, or what, 30,000 years ago or 24,000 years ago to 8,000 or 10,500? That's a lot of time.
And since we're talking about this timeline, something that I've thought about doing was breaking up the Archaic period even further, because now it's structured into an early, middle, and Archaic period.
Yes.
And when that was first thought of, the main dividing line between the Archaic and the Woodland is pottery. But now we know that pottery was in like Georgia and the Carolinas and even Florida by 3,000, 2,500 BCE. Right. So are they woodland? They're not getting
Right.
talked about like a woodland culture, but they have the
Right.
traits of a woodland culture.
Well, exactly. And so, but I think that goes back to something else, like I was already talking about. We can't just take what someone did before and use that as some kind of like, holy grail that we have to follow and assume that everything that they said, back in the 50s or 1900s or whatever, even 70s or, 2000s. I mean, a lot of stuff has changed, especially like I said, once you have DNA, just like I was saying, that one study is new that said the Pitiware culture were clans.
And not just that, you had mentioned back migrations into Africa.
Well, yeah.
Well, there's some DNA studies being done around the Arctic, around the Bering Sea, and there's growing evidence that at least some small Native American groups were heading back into eastern and coastal Siberia.
I totally agree. In fact, I think that they went back 11,000 to 10,000, and they went back like 5,000 years ago. Maybe it also went back 3,000 years ago, and maybe also went back and forth 1,000 years ago. So yes, ideas were. So yes, these clean ideas. Well, same with when I've heard that mythology person, which good on mythology, just don't like when you start talking about migrations. They're like, well, we know Africa has been closed off for 50 to 70,000 years. I'm like, no, it hasn't. The first comes back was. I'll show you a thing. I don't know if you've ever looked at it. My stuff about Africa. The back migrations to Africa are many.
I haven't gone in depth into what you've done for African research.
Good. Here's the first one. This is the first migration for sure back. Oh, I should take it back next. It's not the first. Hold on a second. Let me give you the real first. That's not the first. That's the. It's one of that's one of the early ones, but that's not the first. Where's the other one? Oh, here it is. I think. Okay. So.
Oh. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So D and E. People always go, E is from Africa. I'm like, well, not exactly. So what happened is people left.
Okay.
So this right here, this map shows the origin of humans in North Africa. Then they go down to, in a sense, West Africa, Central Africa. Then they go down to Southern Africa. Then they go to Eastern Africa. And then they leave, but also stay in Northern Africa, but Eastern.
Yeah.
And that's 120,000 years ago. If you notice, they're all the way into almost Iran.
Yeah.
And, right. So
yeah, it looks like they're spreading into most of the Middle East by that point.
Correct. And that's important also because then Iran, that little area right at the edge of it, 80,000 years ago, which of course is 120, 80,000 years ago starts doing farming or like proto farming, sort of, or at least gathering on an extensive level, and then domesticates by 35 oats. But that goes to the Balkans. But anyways, hold on a second. Let's just focus on this. But just going to go back to this whole out of Africa and back to Africa thing. So this is where a lot of people see by 100,000 years ago, DNA from a human with a Neanderthal go all the way to Siberia. Yeah. And also why you have some earlier migrations going all the way to Australia that die off. Okay. So, but those people are not related because they go back 85 to 75,000 years ago. They're back to Africa. And then they go all the way down to South Africa, and then they leave again. But so let's go back to like I was saying about the other thing. So D and E. So D and E, right, becomes E. So a lot of people are like, oh, Africa is E, and E didn't leave until way later. I go, well, E actually already left. In a sense, or its grandparents did, and then it comes back and then becomes an African lineage. So it's a little more complex than you're thinking.
Well, yeah, because there's still a lot of maps out there that just show one migration out of Africa.
Yeah, which is totally fucking wrong.
Yeah,
but this isn't even what I was saying. All I was saying is it's earlier. The people that say it's not, or it was one time, I'm like, yeah, not even close. Okay. So that's the what I would consider the first real one coming back. But that's not the one I wanted to focus on. Of course, I wanted to focus on what most people think of as the back to Africa after we left. So this is the first after the 50,000, right? Because that 50,000 where everyone relates to. So that's really the back to Africa at that point. So this right here shows haplogroup U at 50,000 years ago. Yay! All right. So, but haplogroup U, if you notice, it really ends up being related to not just early shamanism, especially U5, which this is U6, but also is related a lot to all these stars are where there's art. So
yeah, and that's one of the most significant parts of the ice
right.
age.
So you can tell that almost everywhere they go, and then a version of this in Africa goes into North Africa and as U6A, and they also get art. Oh, big shocker.
And it's not just boring old art, it's incredibly lifelike in a lot of cases.
Right. Well, no, that's later. You're thinking about this is before that. My point, this is the first art.
Okay, yeah, the first art. Okay.
Yeah, this is art like 20,000 or so years ago. Anyways, this other art is like 30,000. So we're talking the first art. Anyways, my point is, if you notice that it is really related to the people from Europe coming back in. Now, these people were dark skinned, so I'm not saying the people need to not think of it as like white people came back. No. Dark people left, and guess what? Dark people came back. It wasn't like, when you say Europeans and they think white people. No, that's not.
Yeah, that's not always what it was. No.
Yeah, no. Dark people left, dark people came back. They would have been probably all black or very dark skinned.
Yeah, darker skinned.
So this right here is also showing that the blue bubbles dots, those are the 30,000 people that came back. But then we also have the red right here, R1b V88, which relates to later the Bantu expansion and bringing ideas from the Middle East, which actually goes back to Siberia. And this comes into 8,000, 7,000. Oh yeah, right about the time that they get the supreme gods in Africa. It's also where I realized that they moved with the cultures, because when DNA moves, sometimes ideas also move, and if you can tie those together, then you know something.
Yeah.
But then also these orange arrows are like 6,000 to 5,000. They're coming in again.
Yeah, it's that one from Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
Right. Which this is, and it's also confusing that some of this is like the one in Saudi Arabia, that's eDNA coming back in because eDNA had left, as we showed in the other picture. Yeah. eDNA leaves at a certain version of it, leaves 10,000, and then leaves again at 5,000. And a different version comes back in with Semitic languages at 5,000 down there. But also 6,000, this other ones come in are different stuff. But this isn't even everything, because actually there's more stuff that comes back into Africa. So that's just because I learned more, and also like the maps didn't show, and I had to figure this out slowly.
And that's one of the things I've been doing with my maps, because something like this, it's just like a little snippet of the whole picture. There's still much more. It's
even more varied, because that map misses when JDNA came in. JDNA comes in at 10,000, which isn't even on there, because at the time I didn't know that happened.
Like if you were to take a snapshot of everything going on in this area, not just the area, but the era too.
Oh, totally.
Like you'd barely be able to comprehend the map because there would be so much data.
Right, but here's So speaking of that, here's the map of the Green Sahara. So this darker color is when JDNA comes in from the Middle East, and then that's the time that they get cattle herding, which had the cattle, pastoralist religion, the cattle cult ideas. But then later, then the R1b V88 comes in, younger. But it also brings stuff, but it brought, I think it's the goat, but it also brings pastoralist ideas. But then of course they come in again. And my point is, and you notice that they go to Lake Chad, right? Well, at Lake Chad, that white circle and the white arrows is the diffusion out of Lake Chad that it already was there with the R1B V88 ideas coming from the Middle East and before that Siberia.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go right to the areas of Nile where Egypt is. So they absolutely are influencing Egypt's ideas.
Now, what catches my eye about this image you've made, is that what that boat actually looks like?
Yes.
The boat that looks like a plank boat.
Yeah, that is what
that's incredible.
And because also in that same area, they have these mounds. These are like, human-made or altered mounds that look almost like pyramid or a sphinx or something. I know it's all weathered and smashed, but it just shows that, like I'm saying, is these ideas. So when you're like, oh, well, they haven't had people come back, influence, or no, let's say Africa has been closed off for 60 to or 70 to 50,000 years. I'm like, the fuck it has. No, it has not.
Well, no, yeah.
So anyways, my point I'm trying to say is that, so when, like you said, when you make these ideas off of stuff that's not accurate,
mm-hmm.
you're going to have an inaccurate thinking.
Yeah. No, and like for me, since I'm focusing a lot on the northern hunter-gatherers and post-glacial landscapes, boats are a big topic. And just seeing that Central Africa, or North Central Africa, they were making plank boats 8,500 years ago. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Because most academics just talk about dugout canoes endlessly. But there, that's showing they were skilled at making boats 8,500 years ago.
Everybody doesn't know as much stuff. I study, as you know, everything. So
yeah.
And I also know, see, this is 9,000. So we had 10,000, we have 8,000. This is 9,000. So this is a different people coming in and bringing stuff. And this actually, take it back. Maybe this is when, I can't remember now, but maybe this is when the goats come in. But this is pastoralism. They're bringing in. But tea comes from, the same areas over there, from Iran and from, northeast Turkey or whatever. And you can notice it spreads all over Africa. So to think that it's not having an effect on all these people, these new ideas, and say, yes, it is.
Yeah, it'd be like just looking at this one map, not even mentioning the other maps. It's absurd to say that Africa was isolated.
It is absurd. That's what I'm trying to say, is that when other people talk to me, they're like, oh, well, those people are isolated. I'm like, no, they're not.
No, not at all.
Oh, everyone knows that, Damien. You just have wild ideas. I'm like, no, I'm just way more informed, I guess.
Yeah, you're just
a lot of people, because you're wrong. It's not only like one or two times. It's like, I don't know, 8 times or something. And not even the same people. Yeah, I know, but that's why I told you before. It's hard for me sometimes to talk to people that either think I'm ridiculous, or because they won't spend time to look at my blogs. They won't spend time to look at my links or my art. And all my art has links. I don't just have art that has no links. Every single piece of art has a bunch of links, which tells you all this kind of stuff I'm telling you. Like I said, it's hard because people assume, well, I've never heard anyone say that. And I'm like, well, that doesn't mean it's not true. And it doesn't mean that there's not some, academic somewhere who doesn't know one piece of what I'm saying. I just happen to know multiple pieces from multiple academics. Thus, I actually can get in a sense, a breadth of understanding that's blended. And so,
what I like about your approach is you don't just focus on a specific region like a lot of archaeologists do.
I do the whole world.
You research all over, which is what I do. And I really respect your way of thinking and research. It's a breath of fresh air.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, it's been hard. I mean, like I said, I have been doing this for years, but it's not even that. It's also hard in the fact that I have to research. Like some people will study, say, stone tools. Well, I do that too, but I also do the mythology. I also do the animal husbandry. I also do cultural behaviors. and languages and DNA. I mean, I'm studying all of it.
Yeah,
For
because
like the whole world and all cultures. So,
well, yeah, because we both have a background in psychology and philosophy, so it's easier for folks like us to think deeply about stuff like this
yes.
than someone with, say, like a bachelor's in just archaeology.
Well, even if they have a doctorate in archaeology, even if they're teaching, and I'm not saying that they don't know things. They absolutely
Neither
do.
am I.
But
A lot of them are incredibly knowledgeable.
There probably is not as many people with the breadth of stuff that I engage with,
Yeah.
Because when you start to do like I'm doing, then it starts to be easier to understand why things could be related. If you're just focusing, like here I found one I want to show you. Because people go, Australia has been totally isolated. And I'm like, no, it has not. And Papua New Guinea, those people have totally isolated and all by themselves. I'm like, no.
No, not
So
at all.
every one of these maps is a different influence. And there's more than this, by the way. This isn't just, how many small maps can I show? So I'm trying to show here the multiple things that happen. The pig, the banana, the dog, chickens, and shamanism, of course, totemism and paganism and other ideas. A lot of this stuff is, and then shell mounds also comes. I could have showed you the shell mound one too. These ideas are migrating and spreading around. There's thinking that they were totally isolated is inaccurate.
Yeah. And that's putting it lightly, seeing how much influence they were getting. There was even some genetic studies looking at Northern Australia, and there's like a very faint genetic signal from like 4,500 years ago that they think comes from Eastern India.
Right.
Like they island hopped down Indonesia in those islands.
But I'm just trying to show you that. So when you make a model of mythology has to be isolated and only be related to the first migration, I'm like, no.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be isolated at all.
Oh, it has to be that it's at least 50,000 years old because it's in Australia. And we all know Australia has been cut off for 50,000 years. I'm like, no, it has not.
It looks that way if you just focus your camera on Australia. But as soon as you look out, you see, oh, hey, all these different cultures, they look all related somehow. They're all doing similar things.
Yes. And so, like I said, to me, it tells you something else is going on. Just like
there's more to
in
the
general,
story.
like what's that?
There's more to the story when you look at it like this.
Well, that's why like I say, I don't just do DNA because that would not be full enough. And you notice some of those ways of understanding is because I look at more than one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you just look at one thing, then you can get an inaccurate picture. But when you here, I'll show you something else. This is totem poles. Yeah.
Oh, check that out.
Oh, look at that. Damien explains totem poles. But because I understand the concept of what's going on and the artifacts, like the archaeology. See, that's another thing too, besides the language, the DNA and the culture and the animals and stuff. I also know a lot of the archaeological artifacts, just like I know you do.
Yeah, because they go together.
They go together. See, you understand.
Yeah, you can't have one without the other.
But you start when you see it the way I see it, you start to see the really big picture. Yeah. That's when I keep saying all the time. That's why I said, why would I be agnostic? I literally know this is all culture. I'm not guessing. There's not even like an inkling of I 100% know this is all culture. I literally can trace it one piece at a time. In fact, speaking of that, where did those totem pole ideas come from? Well, they came from figurines that related to shamanism that turn into these stick figures, which are in Russia before they're in Siberia. So they didn't even, right?
Yeah, and not just the totem poles. That female, the lady with the shell cap or the
Oh yes,
the
that's
cap.
correct. Oh
There's still,
yes, I
you
have
see
a
that
thing.
later
I have a
in
thing
North
on that
America.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's all related, really. So I mean, yeah, yes, astute of you to see that. I'll show you. I have a thing of that too. Yes, but that's what I'm saying is that if you only look at it in isolation, it's easy to think that everything was like invented all on its own and has no relations. When you really start looking at it in a deeper level, you start. To me, it's so obviously related as culture.
Yeah.
But like I said, people know stone tools led to other stone tools. It's not like every single time people invented stone tools from whole cloth. Like here's this talking about the funny thing that almost all shamanism, or lots of it, a huge portion of shamanism, covers the eyes. Yeah, like those skull caps that we see in a figurine. And then, of course, that doesn't come from nowhere either, because we know that one of the first shaman burials with a female and a small fox actually had a damaged eye. So maybe that's why everybody else is doing these, covering their eyes, because it relates really back to the first shaman who had the eye damage.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that works.
Imagine that.
So I'm just saying is, once you understand, like I said, seeing it my way and then putting the archaeology and all this stuff together, which is what I do. And I know I'm doing it fast for people, and I'm not trying to do a specific one, but I'm just trying to show you. This goes back to what I was saying about the cold copper culture. It's easy for them to say that I'm wrong unless they know actually how much I really understand. Here's the damaged eye that we know was damaged. And this is another thing interesting too. Even later in Korea, right? The shamans, a female with a damaged eye is believed to see past into the afterlife, which is what I think shamans are doing, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things shamans are known for.
Right. And then, of course, it has writing. So it has this early writing, which we already know is also not a one-off.
No.
Because
and even like a lot of the symbols you see during the Ice Age, like between 40,000 and 10,000 years ago from Siberia, like with the Malta burials.
Right, but it
even
starts
all the way
in
out
France.
west. Yeah, like I was going to say, even all the way out west in France earlier, you see a lot of the same symbols.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the symbols. I have a thing of the symbols. I've been doing this a long time, so I have usually a picture for most of the stuff I talk about, because I've been trying to figure. See, I make the pictures because it helps me to codify into one idea of what I'm thinking. And sometimes when I do it, I don't really understand it totally. I'm doing it, but then later, when I start having all these together, that's when it really starts being easier for me to go, okay,
yeah,
and see and because I remember that.
Yeah, and especially if you can make an image that has like multiple themes, like individuals, tools, and then maps, you get a little bit of the local, individual, then regional, then global scale. That really helps with understanding complex topics.
Yeah, because these are complex topics.
Definitely.
And it's hard to transmit. Oh, I found it. There it is.
They're complex, especially if you're unfamiliar.
Yes. Here's the sacred art and where it's at. And then I even show which area, how many symbols they have in that area that match.
Mm-hmm.
And the only one that has them all is France. And of course, I know that that's where the figurines kind of start, and totemism looks like it starts. But also, I think that's also where, what do you call it? The cosmic hunt, which I
that's a big theme for Northern hunter gatherers. Like cosmic hunt. At least
and I think
I've thought about.
I think it starts like maybe 40,000 years ago or so in France or somewhere over there, and then it ends up moving. Here, I'll show you a thing. This shows the movements of these figurines. So how it ends up in the Middle East and then turns into paganism. Remember, because in the Middle East, it turns into from in a sense, cosmic hunt, or what do you call it? Hunter-gatherer cult. It turns, which would at that time would have been animism, totemism, shamanism. It turns into something more because it transfers to the herding cult, which is paganism to me. But anyways, I show like these different, where the things are, all these little, things. I'm showing you which things were found where. Like number 3, that is a 34 to 35,000 year old moon calendar.
Yeah, I have seen some people talking about that.
Right. And then I show like this other one where it's the 37,000 year old, it has the vaginal triangle with 2 animals being its legs. The lion is leg, and so is the bull, right? And then the next one is a figurine, a picture like, on a plaque of a horned shaman or something holding an antler or something. But my point is, I'm showing where these things are and how the ideas went, right? So that also matches. I have of the Venus figurines, because they also are not random. When you put it and you look at them, of course, as most people show it, it looks random. But you can put it like how Damien likes, like it's just like you do. You map it out. Yeah. Well, that's what I do too. Is I map it out and I go, I want to know exactly where this stuff is. Because then if there is a pattern, I can know the pattern.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So I'll show you right here. And then I did figure out a pattern. Boom. I did figure the pattern.
Okay, let's check this one out.
Right. So I was able to look at where they start in France, which is sort of what I'm already showing you, and then how they moved and what time they moved and what they did. And then how they go to Russia. And then they go to the ones in Russia. So the bottom one is the ones in Russia, right? If you notice all those figurines in Russia, but look at the figurines in Siberia. They literally look like almost a paired grouping, right? Whole bunch of figurines and then 2 long ones, a male and a female.
Yeah.
Which I think that's the totem poles. That becomes totem poles.
I was just going to bring that up. Those ones on the far right, they almost look like the totem poles from the Ural Mountains.
Right. They become the totem poles in a sense, I believe. And you can see how it evolves. Anyways, my point is, and I know that you do similar kind of stuff, and that's why it is important. I do think that, and I respect. So let's look at some of the maps that you have, right? Okay. For the copper culture. Let's look at some of those. So let's see. Let me get rid of these other ones. Because I want to show that that's why I really like and appreciate your work also, because you're doing kind of like what I'm doing.
I'm just
right here is of copper points or whatever. I thought this was good. This is my kind of stuff, or what I like. Don't tell me it's in a general area. Show me the things so then I can understand.
No, this was one of my main areas of focus when I first started researching them. Like nobody, since the 1950s, nobody's put out a distribution map, showing the artifacts by type. I think the Milwaukee Public Museum has a map, an older one, but it's just a bunch of green dots. What am I supposed to do with that?
Right.
I want them organized by type. That way I can get more accurate picture.
Right, because accuracy really helps. Because just randomly showing some stuff doesn't really help.
No.
Like you have this one here. I'm going to show a picture of yours. So stone gouges. It helps to know distribution and that they're different. And that also relates to the marine cultures of making boats. Oh, yeah.
Because
so even though you don't find the boats, you find the tools to make boats. And that would certainly lead to the rational conclusion that it's for boats.
And I can add to this to increase the odds of them being a boat culture. In the Gulf of Maine region, we have a lot of swordfish remains, ancient swordfish remains that started piling up around 5,000 years ago. They're not modern swordfish. They were hunting likely an extinct species of larger swordfish in that same region.
Cool. Yeah, I remember looking at the old paint culture or whatever, the red paint people or whatever, the maritime archaic or whatever.
Yeah, the maritime archaic. Yeah, they stretch all the way up from the northeast where that little red spot is, and even further up north to where the Rama shirt quarries are, all the way down to the dark red in like Connecticut. A lot of their style artifacts have been found down there. And
and then
besides I'll add one more thing. Besides the gouges, because I'm going to be making more versions of these, a lot of fishnet sinkers also cluster in that same dark red area.
Right, and which is like me, showing multiple things all happening really helps you understand what is actually happening.
Yeah. So when you have all those lines of evidence, it's easier to say, hey, there's a good chance they were a boating culture. They like
just
boats.
like I agree. And just like I like the fact you did the old copper culture and you broke it into different things, which could be different clans, all doing similar stuff because clans interact. So clans, like I was telling before, like they have a thing of you can't have sex with your own clan or whatever. But so they have to have sex, obviously, with members of another clan.
And we kind of see some of that with the maritime archaic. A lot of the guys are staying in one place, but they're bringing in women from elsewhere,
which is totally coherent to clan behavior. That's what I'm saying, so that you understand. That's one way, besides burial, that you can see the clans is how they're interacting. But like I said, just the fact you show this, they're all sort of doing it, but they have their own distinct thing. That sounds a lot like clans.
Yeah, and there's enough data available now to actually make maps like these to propose different regional variants. It's been talked about for decades, since at least the 70s or earlier, but nobody's really like gone ahead and chopped these up like the way I have.
Yeah, I think that you've done some excellent work. I really appreciate it. And like I said, being someone who has also done similar kind of things, I like it. It's more of the kind of stuff I like. Like, don't just tell me the stuff. Show me why it's reasonable,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't think this. Why is that?
Yeah.
Show me why you don't think it's reasonable. Show me why you think it is.
Yeah.
So I think that is, sometimes I feel, other people aren't doing enough of that. And so then, like I said, then here's one for the Adena, right? And I've made copper color for the stuff that I know for sure they're saying is copper. And it comes from the Great Lakes, which we already talked about. And my thing is, too, that they don't just get these copper. They also have, other stuff that's similar from outside their region, which I think ideas cannot be excluded as things coming with that.
No, and we can actually see a lot of continuity here between the archaic and the early woodland, which the Adena is considered part of, not just with the copper, because the old copper people were making bracelets. It's the mica crescent. Old copper people were making a lot of those, but with copper.
Right.
And you head out east to maritime archaic territory, they're making those same things, but out of slate and groundstone.
And that's what I'm saying is that,
and even the bone combs. A lot of Eastern groups, like the Laurentians you showed in the previous map, and also the maritime archaic, they're making bone hair combs.
Exactly. And so the fact that you put it into specifics, it does really help.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another layer of understanding.
I feel like not just to understand it better, but to get a better picture of what's really happening.
That too, because there's multiple influences. You have to look beyond that culture's territory. You have to look at the trade routes. Which communities are they interacting with? How often are they interacting with those people?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's because the Adena culture is here, right, in Ohio. But to me, I think that they're getting their ideas from the Algonquin, which are getting them probably some pre-existing stuff that was already in the area of the old copper culture.
Yeah, and there's a guy on Facebook. He's been writing articles. His name's Jeffrey C. And he's been focusing a lot lately on the Algonquin migration. And the map you're showing right now, that's basically the route he's showing. He's done a lot of work showing how the Algonquin migration is directly related to the Adena culture.
I didn't know that. That's great, because that's what I already, by doing this, I already started figuring out, wait a minute.
Yep.
I think that these things are related.
Yeah, Larry Furrow, he's been sharing a lot of his posts on the Misquabic Facebook group. And for those who don't know Misquabic, that is the Ojibwe word for copper. Another translation would be red metal.
Cool.
Yeah. And I'm a member of that group. I post some of my maps there. I share stuff there almost every day. And Larry's been sharing a lot of Jeffrey C's work there for quite a while too.
Well, if you ever feel like you want to share my stuff, go ahead. I will definitely, and I have been sharing your stuff. So,
oh yeah, the academia article and your blog post, I shared that to the Old Copper Facebook page.
Cool.
Over 200 likes.
Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah, so a lot of people are interested in that.
Yeah, because to me, this shows the Algonquin stuff, how it moved, and then how the other languages are situated in that same area. But like I said, the stuff, we know that the copper culture had it there, and then the Adena, but right after the Adena, then you get the Hopewell that are also doing copper from the Great Lakes. And so it has influence, and the religious ideas are, and burial, and a lot of the stuff is, that's why in a sense it's a complex. All these people are doing similar things.
Yeah.
They're not, like I said, everyone always thinks about because you could say that these people are moving around, even they're building mountains, there's still a lot of moving around.
Yeah.
But
just because they're moving around, and just because a lot of them are still hunting and gathering, that doesn't make them simple. No. Like a lot of people would say, that doesn't make them ignorant, loincloth wearing primitives. They were definitely complex.
Right, because this right here, the heart of the Hopewell, and they're getting items from all over the place.
Yeah.
Massive trade numbers. And these ear things are 5,000 years old coming into the Pacific Northwest. And they actually come from the Middle East.
Yeah, so and one of the older diagrams you showed of the Adena items.
Yes.
On the far left, there was a figurine with gauged ears with those ear spools.
Correct.
And even though those are associated with Adena and Hopewell, there's a chance that the old copper people were using those too, but they were made of wood or something else perishable. Because we see wooden ear spools with the Mississippians, but theirs have survived because they're closer in time to us and in a different environment.
Exactly. Yeah, I think speaking of the Mississippian too, the Mississippian to me have some really interesting items. But
especially with the masks, with the god with the long nose.
Yes, but going back to the Hopewell real quick before we get to the Mississippian.
Yep.
The copper items that they were doing were seriously, varied and elaborate.
Yeah.
And to me, the fact that they're getting it, some of this, so it goes, a lot of this is Great Lakes. So some of this from the Great Lakes, you could say, oh, well, maybe that someone just had old artifacts, because I've heard someone say this, and reused it and make these items. But I think also it's not unthinkable to think that they're still trading. So even though people say that the old copper complex is gone, somebody up there is mining it or getting it and transmitting it to other people.
Yeah, just because there are a lot of mining pits around the Keweenaw Peninsula and even elsewhere in Minnesota and eastern Ontario. And even though David Pompiani's data shows mining stops in the Keweenaw and Isle Royale around 5,400 years ago, he only tested certain mining pits and the nearby lakes. He didn't test all of them.
Oh,
So there's a good chance that mining could have started earlier and lasted longer than we currently think. They could have still been mining during the Hopewell era.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and if they did, like I said, who's trading this stuff?
Yeah, very
And
good
and
question.
and there's certainly, like you said, some of the things are matching. So certainly some of the ideas are being transmitted from previous stuff. It's not like it was everything stopped and then all ideas left and then new people came in with only new ideas. You
No,
know,
and even looking at all this geometric copper artwork, a lot of this stuff is made on very thin copper plates. And the old copper people were making some of these copper plates, like not the geometric ones, just regular thin copper plates.
right.
So uh, one of the things the old copper culture is known for are a ton of woodworking tools, everything from tiny knives to gouges to, like I mentioned earlier, uh, socketed spuds, socketed adzes like these. So, like between the old copper complex days and the later Adena and Hopewell days, it's almost like this. There's this flip. Like there's this long-lived tradition of creative woodworking, possibly making items like what the Hopewell were making, or even like figurines like what the Mississippians were making. But between 3,000 and 2,000 years ago, that flips. Instead of making them out of wood, they're getting made out of copper. So that'd
Right.
be
Yeah,
something to think
I
about.
agree. That's like someone said to me before, when did the you know, stone, age end? Because even when a lot of people don't know, like they don't generally call it the copper age, like they call it the bronze age.
Mhm.
And they call it the Chalcolithic, meaning in the sense copper and still stone.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like a neat thing that once copper started, everybody just got rid of stones. They
No.
they did really both of them together in a
And
sense.
like the Chalcolithic, we really see that with the old copper complex, especially since they had the intensive mining. Because you look over to the Balkans and you see much the same thing, except over there, you have intensive agriculture, animal husbandry, and like some type of record keeping system with clay tablets and
Yeah,
those
but
giant towns and urban centers.
right, but even over there, when they got copper for sure, probably even bronze, they still sort of were doing some stone tools. Even after they were casting stuff, there's
Yeah,
stone celts that were made that literally match cast items with the seams and
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
They
Especially with the boat agriculture of the Balkans, like the seam
they
line is still there. It's like
hum-
a copy from the
yes,
older Copper Age axes.
hilarious. Like, so I mean that kind of throws the whole, well, it had to be, one thing cleanly. But I like I said before, that ideas sometimes get dropped off and then picked back up.
Yeah, and what's
So
cool?
here,
Uh,
speaking of the Balkans and copper distribution, this is
uh-huh.
my blog showing and how the trade networks. In fact, tin was coming all the way from Cornwall all the way to Israel.
Yeah, I had picked that up when I first started researching this era a few years ago, but it wasn't big in the news like it is now. Like just how significant Cornwall tin was.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this right here is probably about 6, 8 years old or something, or at least 4 or 5. It's definitely not new. I did this a long time ago.
Oh yeah,
I
it's
did
not
this.
new,
I
but
know this for 100% because this is back when I had LinkedIn. Because all those little blue things down at the bottom are LinkedIn links to all the blogs or articles I used or whatever to
yeah,
make this map. But then LinkedIn kicked me off because people got offended by me. Which I always think is funny because I'm not like a really offensive person. I just post things they don't like. It makes
they
them
they
mad.
couldn't tolerate your educated opinion.
Yeah, because I say, well, actually, a lot of academics like me. I think some people didn't. It's the religious stuff because
Oh
I
yeah,
say,
that's
because I
always a
say,
touchy subject.
well, because I said that the thing that I think probably is what was like several things that happened, but I know for sure that they got mad because they literally told me that I got in trouble for pissing people off about the Noah's Ark thing. And I'm like, I don't know how an academic site would be mad at me for saying Noah's Ark isn't real. I mean,
yeah.
Like, I don't know. And I'm an atheist. They should maybe not follow me then, if it offends them.
Isn't that the thing a lot of academics are doing nowadays? Just saying that Noah's Ark isn't real.
Yeah.
But you
So
say
this is a picture I showed that got me somewhat in trouble because I say the Genesis 5 narrative, if it's real, is an evil God. Literally genocides the whole earth because a few people make them unhappy. That also killed children, right? That supposedly haven't committed sin. Also killed animals that didn't deserve to die.
Yeah, so you're destroying like a whole world because a handful of people were sinning.
Right. So to me, it's an absolutely ridiculous idea.
Yeah, and you'd think if it was an all-powerful, all-knowing God, he would have figured something else out to save all those lives, or just snap his fingers and
just
make them all
think,
good.
couldn't a God just killed them? Right? He's powerful.
Yeah.
He has to use floods. I mean, you get what I'm saying. Come on. Speaking of flood myths, flood myths are all over the place. In places actually that there's not floods. Uh-oh. Yeah, because it's mythology.
Yeah.
It's not a real thing. Because like everything else, it got spread around. Because I know someone said before, oh, there's no world-spanning ideas. I'm like, yes, there are. And it's not just related to how people say where it's like, well, they're a local whatever. I'm like, no. There's more mythology, like the Cosmic Hunt, right? So we know that's not about floods, right? Cosmic Hunt is not a random thing that people are going to come up with.
No, yeah. But the Cosmic Hunt, I'm most familiar with the ones talked about by Northern hunter-gatherers, but it's all over.
Right. So when you know facts, like I do, it sucks to then think that ideas are only to one area when I know that more about them than a lot of people do, because it's just as hard as I study the DNA and the cultures and the artifacts. I also study high gods, right? Wow, there's too many high gods.
Oh, yeah, how about that?
It's almost like they spread around like culture. Oh, wait a minute. They
almost.
did.
I wonder how they all got there.
Yeah, how did that happen? Yeah, well, neat thing. Yeah, it's related. Oh, yeah. Okay. You're like, it's
when you look at the artifacts and all the DNA and the migrations, it's easy to
right, Mike. Speaking of migrations, so people like, what happened with the cult of cannabis? It's almost like it's related and a culture thing. Oh, wow, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, isn't that something?
Oh, one more thing that's related to migrations and culture. Yeah, funny how that works. But like I said, when you and I know tons of stuff. And I know you do too, which I actually appreciate. Like here's the Jewish temple altars, one to Yahweh, one to Asher, and they're burning cannabis. Oh, it's almost like they got that idea from the steppe people.
Oh, wait a minute! Isn't this back when Yahweh had a wife before they booted her out?
Oh, oops! We let the cat out of the bag.
Damn! Oh. They should have kept that.
Oh, it was a sky father and an earth mother. Wait a minute! Isn't that a common theme in like almost every religion of the world, or at least enough of them to show that it's a pattern? Yes, actually, it is. Which is something that also I mapped out to figure out, because people's like, oh, there's a lot of connections, but it's just all random. And I'm like, okay. So I did like you, and like, I want to plot this with the languages and see if it's random. Oh,
I actually didn't. And backtrack just a tad. I actually didn't know that cannabis was being associated with his wife.
Oh, is that what, yeah. Well,
I didn't know that. Brian Murarescu, he's written some work tracing the origins of alcohol and psychedelic use from Task Templar into the early agricultural societies, but I didn't know about the cannabis
Cannabis use.
relationship. Yeah,
Oh,
I didn't know about that. That's
yeah.
incredible. It
Well, a
adds
lot of
another.
times, well, even
That's
like
more
the
depth.
Scythian burial, there's cannabis, and she has breast cancer. It's a female, probably a shaman too. But
Mm,
yeah, so I agree. So things are connected, as you know, a lot more than people think. So all these colors are language families, and then I show that in the language family has a general type of deities, grouping of a male and female in most of the world, not every single place, but most of the world. So there's a lot, like oh shit ton. And I have a list of all the different ones because it's actually. But my point is, I'm going back to what I'm saying is, you can start to see this is cultural.
yeah.
This is not. This is not just like the artifacts you show. You know, the copper moves around, and so
Yeah.
the ideas and the things. Yeah, this is not. It's not. People like to think it's like all random, but
It's not all random.
not.
Like, maybe like a handful of things, but most of it's not random.
No,
You can trace it back to migrations, DNA, and trade routes.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
that's that's what in languages. Languages share, spread ideas. Really great. But then they even ideas jump over languages, and you have multiple languages, but yet they're doing most of the similar things. And so, to me, like I said, I know you've done some stuff on mythology, but that's what I want to do some videos, like I said, with you on getting really in depth in some of the archaeology more than I did before, you know. And I also wanted to continue, like I was already doing recently, was doing the mythology series, finishing it, because me and Corey stopped at 15. And so I want to do at least, to me, the other 5 that I was plan on doing, and maybe, of course, more than that, because there's other ones I really would like to do is explain all this stuff. Because my goal is, I know that once I explain it all and people see, like me, that it's really all related and connected and understand it more, believing in it as real is a lot harder, I think. It's easier to believe in it if you think, well, there's one special something like, okay, either it's all true or it's all not true, because special is not the correct word. Like, because that was the 2 deities together. Well, here's another of the 2 deities together in the Balkans. These things are like the size of, like, you know, the TV huts or whatever. These are pretty huge. And they're both duals, right? Yeah. Okay. So it obviously is something going on.
And not just with the actual figurine models, some of their house models, some of the ones made
these
later on.
are not small. These are like, you know, 5 feet high and 7 feet wide or something. These are huge. These are not like big. I know they look like, and I draw them. You're thinking, oh well, shit, those are just figurines. Like, no, these are pretty freaking huge. Actually.
Okay, so yeah, maybe figurine isn't the right word if they're this freaking big.
No, there is figurines that match this also. So it's not just that they did these big, you know, altars is what I would call these. These things are absolutely massive, you know. Because
what I was getting at is some of their house models.
Yes,
they show like the traditional yin yang symbol on the side.
Yes.
So it's like they had this idea of a balance of opposites, even way back then.
I agree. Right. Exactly. That's very astute of you. Yes, they're doing a symbolic thing of because the yin and the yang, just so you know, like in Asia, is the male and female. One of the aspects of it, not everything, but one of the aspects is the dualism of male and female.
Yeah,
and
there are actually a few articles coming out now looking at the old Europeans, especially the Cucuteni Tropilians.
Right.
And looking at the pottery from China that was being made at the same time. And there's enough similarities, interestingly enough, between the 2 potteries that some papers have been published on that.
Correct. And then it's
So
even like Egypt, right? And Egypt has an evolution, but if you notice, it's male and female, and then it's they're carrying on these similar things. It's not a one-off, and it's not just that they have males and females. These are deity things.
Mhm.
So, to me, that, like I said, you start to understand. I was looking for the one it's in the Balkans, but you start to understand, though, that, like I said, that these things are showing up in the mythology, they're showing up in the artifacts, and they match the migrations and movements of people to a point that, yeah.
yeah, and even on the far right, the three gray boxes,
Yeah.
the one on the right side with like the little dog thing with like some type of plant above it. In one of your blogs, do you
Yeah,
show?
I explained that before. Yes, too. Here's the
Yeah.
the Kukateni culture. But if you notice too, there's the on the top, the middle ones, right? So the one on the left hand top of the four, that shows three different, right in the same area, but three different male and female figurines. So one is the one sitting down, and the other one sitting down. Then one is that altar thing with the male and female. And then another one is a bowl with a male and female sitting side by side inside the bowl, like you fill it with water as a ritual thing. And I'm just saying that it is showing that these it's not a one-off, and the interactions of the people, they're coming from Çatalhöyük, right? Yeah. And they're going right into the Kukateni. This is DNA wise. We know this migration happened. And so I show too that, speaking of the figurines of the females, I show the figurines coming from Turkey, and then all these other versions that are keep doing the same, mistress of animals or whatever motif or whatever. Watch, I'll show you. See, you have Çatalhöyük, and then all these other ones, and there's Kukateni, and all these other ones having this woman with animals. And there's a lot more too. I just try to give a sampling so you can see, holy shit, this is wait a minute now.
And even beyond the mistress of animals, one of the things the old Europeans were known for was a lot of female figurines. And so there really is a strong emphasis.
Right, but to me, what it is there's more than one kind of goddess. It's not just like every one of the things were the same goddess. So I agree with you, yes. But to me, the figurines, like here's ones from 30,000 years ago, all the sitting ones. And if you notice, I put them into groups. So like the first group is kind of as the one oldest, right? Then the next group, they're less, humanoid, but still, so that's kind of like the first ones. But then they start slowly to become a little more. And the Neolithic is all the middle ones, or whatever, the lower ones. And they're starting though to get a little bit more, but they're still really not that different than the first ones. No. So it hasn't really, in 30,000 years, it hasn't. People think, oh, they just started in the Neolithic. No, they didn't. They were already doing this behavior. And then the red, everywhere in the red, and that one in the right bottom corner, everything in the red has these kind of figurines. So you start to see it's also sort of localized with these cultures that we know we're interacting.
Yeah.
So that, just like you, I try to put this stuff in context also, because that helps to grasp what's happening. Just like, let me give you a thing of Japan, right, and pottery, and you can see the DNA and the pottery, and it helps you understand like when pottery happened and then how that affected the things. So you can see pottery starts at one, right? That first line, the lowest towards the left.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom left. That's 20,000 years ago. It starts pottery. That pottery breaks off and goes into Japan from the southern route. That's haplogroup O took it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you see the one that it left the mainland of China or whatever, how it looked, right? It's more rounded bottom, and then how it shows up in the southern Japan with the kind of a bottom. But the pointed, the oldest, right, goes up into Siberia with kind of pointed. And then it shows it going over and kind of rounding again, but staying somewhat pointed. And the northern route, and then you see the northern route, that's haplogroup N.
Yeah, and then it heads west, and we see the pointed bottom pottery with groups around the Baltic.
Right. Right. So and that the pottery coming out there is, I don't know if I have the thing, or I have one somewhere, but of the pottery going all the way over there. It's let me see, this one maybe. This has pottery going all the way over there and shows some of the migration of what happened. And DNA wise, I know there's a lot of maps. Well, because there's a lot of migration that I'm trying to explain it.
Yeah,
so like here it says one, right? That's
really
where
show the pottery.
Well,
like the bottom two in the center, but all the other
bottom
ones
two
are
in the center
too.
show the pottery, yes. And then the one on the top of the center is showing the time, and it matches what the pottery is doing. Starts at 1, goes to 2, goes to Siberia, goes to 3, goes to Sami, and over to the Baltic, and that's showing that the ideas are going over. So, but anyways, I'm going to start wrapping it up. But so I'm just saying that there's, and I want to go in depth into a lot of stuff with you, because I feel like we're both on the same page, and our styles are very similar to how we like to show stuff.
Yeah. And I've researched a lot of the stuff in Eurasia too, less so for Africa, mostly towards Europe and parts of the Middle East. But what I'm unfamiliar with is genetics and mythology. I've dabbled here and there, but I don't know nearly as much as you do for that. So that's something that'd be a learning experience for me with these future videos.
Yeah. And I've done a lot on the genetics, definitely, and the mythology probably more than you have. But you know, I still like that a lot of our stuff is very similar, and both of us like to kind of like plot it all out and see it, you know, because then I can see, oh, this is what happened. In a way that it's really hard to do otherwise. And so I put
like a layer cake.
Right.
Yeah. You just keep adding more layers of understanding, and you get a more complete picture of what actually happened.
Well, because if you just looked at one area, you literally would not understand throughout time, even if you things change, but you wouldn't know why they're changing.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you have stuff coming in, like I was telling you about the R1A, like this thing on the top, right? This yellow, that's blonde hair and also light skin, and it goes from Siberia all the way to Eastern hunter-gatherers, and Eastern hunter-gatherers shoot into Sami 10,300 years ago. But the reason why it shows dark skin and light skin is because the bottom one is I, which is the Western hunter-gatherers who had dark skin, and the R1A comes in with the light skin, so they end up with intermediate skin, in a sense, because they're mixing these two cultures. So I mean, it helps to understand how that they're breaking it down. But I really appreciate, you coming on, and like I said, to me, this was, like interviewing you, but also us interacting so we can, show people how we're going to interact and do videos. And that, it wasn't just to do the copper stuff, which I know, you're really good at, and I appreciate. And we did the blog on it, and we will do another show where we do the blog more, and I have you read stuff like I normally, had Corey do. because but I wanted like an intro thing to both of us and our how we work together, so people can
Yeah. And if anything, this way of talking about information and even presenting it works better for me because with David's podcast, the main focus was the copper,
right.
and I could have focused just on that, but there's so much more you need to know to understand and appreciate what those people accomplish because it was more than just copper. It was a center of innovation for North America thousands of years ago that barely anyone's talking about.
I agree. Like I said, we'll do one. I'm probably going to say, chatting. This one will probably just be a video chatting with, Dylan, and I'll mention the stuff, related to the copper culture, but other cultures, because, or just say maybe other cultures, or talking prehistory. That's what I'll say. We're talking prehistory.
Yeah, it's like a casual introductory chat.
Right, yeah, because this is also us, first time really having a chat and interacting with each other, and then we'll start hunkering down and doing more, like my normal style is to like really focus, like reading the blog, doing the stuff, more distinctly than we. This to me is like all over the place, but I think it was fun for me, and also lets you get to know and experience, what I do.
Yeah, and it gives your audience a chance to see how I am, my
Exactly.
thinking style, how we're similar, how we're different.
Right.
And
I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, it'll give me a chance to like gradually slide on to your YouTube channel instead of just like, oh, here's Dylan, he's taking Corey's place.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you're not just pushing him out or something.
No, not at all.
And also that we've interacted, even though this is maybe the first time people have seen you and me talk on a video, us as well. This is not the first time we've interacted, and we've now done 2 blogs together or articles together. So, and we're going to do other stuff. This is just the first foray into it. But I really appreciate your time. I'm going to let you go, and everybody, check out your stuff. I think that your stuff is amazing. I'm very impressed by it. And as you see, I know a lot, so it takes a lot to get me impressed. But I am impressed.
For your viewers, if you want to contact me or see where I'm posting my content, you can find me on Facebook. I post to the Old Copper Complex and Ancient Waterways America Facebook group. And I also post to the Misquabic Facebook group. For Reddit, I go by CopperViolette, the CopperViolette. On X, I go by the same name. I post on there. Occasionally, I'm always reposting stuff from people I follow, mainly academics, artwork, every once in a while, stuff like that. And I'm also on academia.edu, but on there I go by Dylan Violette. There's more than one person named Dylan Violette, but for me, just go to Damien's account, click on his recent article, you'll find my name there. I'm a co-author. I have a black background with copper-colored icons that look like Hopewell earthworks and a lot of blue squiggly lines around those. That account's mine.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, I will put the blogs in here. Eventually, too, I will probably make a blog about you in a sense, so that people, will, like, you give me some bio stuff, and I'll make it so that way, if people are interested, they can have a blog with all your links, all the stuff right there.
Yeah.
You don't have to go searching for it. Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good, Damien.
All right. Take care. Thank you for coming.
Hey, take care, man.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. And axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, ignosticism, atheism, anti-theism, anti-religionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheist can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudo-history, pseudo-morality, things that are found in religion.